One thing that I always find really interesting is how many people kind of all agree that this is the time for Africa to shine and there is a lot happening out there, but no one has really taken the step to do anything.
We see many African SMEs that, they have the potential to become a successful, African, but also global traders as well. So that's the first point.
I said education helps us to understand our problems, but also come up with solutions to them. Technology helps us to scale out the solution.
You'll find that we are likely to hold positions of power across the globe, regardless of what our representation is. We often have to overcome so many barriers and constraints in life and have to work twice as hard than our male counterparts to access those positions of power.
I just want to say this experience has shown me that Africa is home to an incredibly diverse group of talented and innovative people, including entrepreneurs and business leaders who are poised to make a difference and make significant contributions across Africa, as well as to the global economy.
If you've been to Africa, or if you're African, you know exactly what I'm talking about. With especially in Uganda, we have 45 million people, with only less than 40% have access to internet.
I have a lot of hope for the AFCFTA because, as you know, being in this space for a long time, I realized that it righted the wrong of the way in which we've approached trade and trade policy, the way we've approached investment policy, which is the other part of the marriage, and the way we have ignored industrial policy.
Now, as we all know, Africa is going to quadruple its population in the next 2 decades. In other words, in the next 2 decades, 1 in every 4 person on planet Earth is going to be African. Now, 70% of that is below 25 years. So Africa is a very youthful population, and Africa is going to unleash a very youthful population on the world.
So no matter where you are in the world, you can find talent in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Tanzania, all around. But our people and our young professionals need to be upskilled and be informed about how to do effective work, even if it's remote.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth edition of Africa Future Summit 2021. We are so excited to welcome you all to this live session. We're going to have different influencers or speakers come on the session today to discuss so many different thought leadership around where Africa is today when it comes to trade, tourism, technologies. Many different conversations will take place today over the next couple of hours, thanks to our 30 iconic speakers from across the African diaspora and across the African continent. So let's dive right into today's schedule. So first and foremost, my name is Christine and Tim. I'm the CEO of the Global Startup Ecosystem. We are the organization that powers programs like the Africa Future Summit. Feel free to engage and network and tag us at #Africa Future Summit so that way we can hear your perspectives and your thoughts during today's journey. I want to send a huge shout out and round of virtual applause to our speakers. Again, we have 30 phenomenal speakers who will be joining us today. A huge round of applause to all of them for being a part of this initiative. And of course, a huge thank you to our global partners who made this possible as we explore the theme of scaling the future of trade and tech hubs in Africa. Of course, we do want to always congratulate. This is the second year that we're doing a digital version of the Africa Future Summit. So we want to give a huge thank you to our 2020 last year's speakers who've been a part of the session. You just saw the promo recap video featuring some of their high-level thoughts. And a huge thank you, of course, to our previous speakers. This is actually the 4th edition of Africa Future Summit. We've been running this program every single year, gathering influencers regarding the African continent. You can find more information about what we do at the africafuturesummit.com. Again, huge thank you to our partners, both our global partners who support us on accelerator training across the African continent, from Google Cloud, IBM, DigitalOcean, AWS, and the like. And of course, our local partners who have been promoting this program. It's a free session for thousands to support and be a part of this initiative. And of course, our lead partners, Pont Global and Momentum, for supporting us with agenda, theme, and engaging our global ecosystems regarding this initiative. So huge thank you to all partners involved and to all partners to make this program accessible to influencers across the African continent. Now, I want to extend a huge overview of, again, this program is powered by the global startup ecosystem, and our pillars of engagement, how we engage in really supporting influencers across the continent, has been through 3 pillars, which is entrepreneurship, employment, and education. We have run programs across the African continent for years, as well as within the African diaspora, running initiatives to train. And pretty much our mission is to prepare individuals and institutions for the digital future. And this obviously is one of the many programs that the Global Startup Ecosystem hosts. We currently have over 200 brands under management, 68 of which are live. This is also a part of a regional series. Last week, Friday, we had the Caribbean Future Summit. This week, we have Africa Future Summit. And next week, we will have Latin America Future Summit. Of course, we have other regional programs like Europe Future Summit and Asia Future Summit. But again, as we scale at GSC, we not only host regional programs around the world, but we also host programs in different countries. So stay tuned for more information regarding Ghana Tech Summit and Nigeria Tech Summit that will be happening this fall. And of course, our vertical topic summits that we do globally around the world, from AI to blockchain to nanotechnology. We are very proud of our mission of scaling the conversation of technology and pretty much kicking off ecosystems in emerging markets for the past couple of years. So definitely look out for our growth and our scale. If you want more information about the global startup ecosystem, you can check us out at our website at globalstartupecosystem.com. Now, many people always ask, how can they get involved with our initiatives? Feel free to either RSVP for any of our programs, or practically all our programs are free and accessible to all, because we want to make sure that we are supporting access to people around the world. Or you could partner, exhibit, or amplify our stories and our information through your community as an ecosystem partner. So those are the various ways to get involved and get in touch with our team. Without further ado, let's kick off Africa Future Summit 2021 Digital Edition. Hopefully you guys are excited for this. I know I'm personally excited about this edition of Africa Future Summit, because now we're going beyond just having conversations of technology, but we're talking about trade. There's been so much movement and conversations around the future of the African continent. Now that more and more entrepreneurs are making mainstream products, are taking global stage. I'm sure you've heard of all the iconic announcements regarding startups, African startups and entrepreneurs who are scaling and dominating industries, both on the African continent, but around the world. And of course, alongside these startups are, of course, SME influencers who are making a dent in empowering communities within their respective regions. And the speakers that we have today will be talking about trade, technology, fashion, culture. There'll be a varied point of conversation today for today's session. So it's going to be an action-packed agenda. After me, we're going to have remarks for our Executive Director of Africa Future Summit 2021, followed by our kickoff panel, African Perspectives and Career Dialogues, to share your perspective on the future of work and career choice, followed by keynote remarks from our headline speakers, then a panel regarding scaling African fashion in the global market, and ending with the key future trends in construction and real estate industries across the African continent. So a lot to discuss. Again, my name is Christine and Tim. I'm the founder and CEO of the Global Startup Ecosystem. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you to this year's session, and I look forward to engaging with you through thought leadership and dialogue throughout the rest of the day. So again, I just shared a round of applause to all of our speakers that are joining us. Of course, a round of applause to each and every one of you for joining us from wherever you are today for this iconic program. So with that, let's get the countdown ready and get ready for our Executives Summit remarks. I'm so excited to welcome Boosie to the stage. She'll be joining us in the next 30 seconds. Welcome, welcome, Boosie. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the one and only Boosie Masego, who is going to be speaking and kicking off remarks. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Christine. I would like to thank all the participants of the Africa Future Summit 2021. I would like to thank our GSC team, starting with our CEO, Christine and team, as well as all the speakers, our sponsors, our keynotes, panelists. I mean, this is an amazing year, 2021. I mean, coming out of a severe pandemic last year, and we're still going forward, moving forward. I would like to congratulate you for making it this year, and like to thank all our previous speakers as well. This year we have, as we continue to speak about trade and the future of trade in Africa, it's so exciting to just hear the perspectives of the different speakers, including the panelists who will talk about career perspectives and dialogues on that, as well as scaling Africa's fashion on a global market, and the first ever real estate and construction panel, the Africa Future Summit, which brings different industry people to talk about their perspectives. So this year is an important year. It also coincides with the Intra-Africa Trade Initiative taking place in Durban in November between the 15th to the 21st, which is hosted by South Africa government and the Africa Union, as well as Afrexim Bank, and will bring so many stakeholders to Durban. So this is an interesting time for Africa with the AFCFTA going into kicking off in January. And the AFCFTA is also one of the hosts of that trade show. And right now, Africa is a beacon of hope. We've seen over 300 companies this year, before the end of the year, make over $1 billion. What we're seeing, that technology is just the beginning for Africa, while in the West, it has been an innovation. So the world is now seeing the Africa that was never shown just because of technology. And we should be grateful and we should be thankful, and the opportunities are immense. I thank you all once again, and I thank the team who has worked effortlessly and tirelessly in putting together this initiative. Thank you, and enjoy the panels and the speakers, and we welcome you to participate with us.
Thank you so much, Busi. Again, another round of a virtual applause to our one and only Busi, Executive Director at Africa Future Summit 2021. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now let's transition to our next session. I'm so excited to kick off the first panel, African Perspectives and Career Dialogues. Share your perspective on the future of work and career choice. I'm going to be inviting our panelists. We're going to be kicking off with our moderator. Please give a warm virtual welcome. We're going to kick off the countdown and welcome them to the stage. Hello. I'll pass it over to Gareth Cliff to kick off the panel.
Thank you very much, Christine, and welcome everybody. I think the people I'm about to introduce you to now are a very, very good selection of real leaders and people who've done incredible things in their various ways, shapes, and forms across the African continent. And we'll be discussing in particular here the perspectives that each of them have on their own industries, as what they think the future of work might be across various industries, spaces, places, platforms in Africa, and in particular in technology, I suppose. This is where a lot of our mutual interests are currently to be found. So first and foremost, let me begin by introducing these people to you. They're all well known in their various fields. Amadou Daffé is the CEO and co-founder of Gibea Inc. There she is. Good. Hi, are you there? Gabrielle?
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Very, very good. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Gabrielle is the CEO of Nabu. And then we've got Nombasa Mawela, who's the founder of Drisa Realtors. Nombasa and Toby Shapshak, I see, the editor-in-chief of Stuff Studios. And it's very good to have all of you here to discuss various things. Deneen is also here. Deneen Erasmus. Deneen is with Farmers Weekly, which is a well-known title in South Africa. And they've also done an enormous amount in changing what they do in South Africa and on the continent. So let's begin. Perhaps this may be a bit cheeky of me, but Toby Shapshak, a couple of years ago, you spoke at TED about where Africa is going, and you made some very interesting points which turned out to be quite prophetic about precisely where technology will take Africa. And we just had Busi say that, in Africa, it's just the beginning. We're a mobile-first continent. Your predictions have come true. Just remind us of what they were and boast a little bit about what you said all those years ago.
Well, thanks for the introduction. Hello, everybody. The thesis that I was proposing, and it's by no means mine, is that innovation in Africa is better because it's innovation out of necessity. It's not solving pie-in-the-sky problems. It's solving very real problems that we all live through. And of course, the mobile device has become the device. It's become both the credit card and the computer of the mobile generation, and mobile money, which of course has blossomed in Africa. Its first great use case, M-Pesa, has proved the case. And half of all mobile money services in the world right now, according to the GSMA, are in Africa. So we are a mobile only, continent. I heard Eric Schmidt, when he was still the CEO of Google, speaking at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, and he gave a talk about how Google was a mobile first company. Google was a mobile first company, and what they did was program for mobile before they programmed for desktop. And I thought about it, and I thought, actually, Africa's mobile only. We've never had desktop computers in any meaningful numbers. And that's really what we've seen. So many of the brilliant ideas and brilliant innovations that now ride on the back of M-Pesa. You have layer upon layer upon layer of innovation. It all started with cheaper internet access in Kenya and East Africa. And on the top of that, so much else has been built. But I wanted to facetiously say that the future of work looks very much like it always has if you're a journalist or a technology journalist or anyone who works in the tech space, right? You have a laptop, you can work anywhere, you become used to the drone of noise in the background, or you wear headphones, noise-canceling headphones. And that's really one of the hallmarks, I suppose, of this new generation of working. I have a friend who runs a company who's just been bought by a big American VC firm. And they've never owned offices. They do, they're called netstock.co. They do inventory management, and they can save as much as 10% on people's inventory. That's a lot of money if it's, $10 million or 10 million rand. They've never had offices. They've got people all over the world, Johannesburg, Cape Town, a couple of places in the States, somewhere here, somewhere there, and everybody's always worked from home. And this is a highly successful business that's just, been bought and scaled, based out of everybody's home study. So we see the future of work, and we know that it's that great thing that somebody realized somewhere in the 80s. I think work is not somewhere you go, but it's something you do. And we live in a world where you can do anything anywhere. And what COVID's done is accelerate how we do that.
Well, I'd like to go straight to Nombasa Mawela, who's from Drisa Realtors. And really, Nombasa, you're in a good position to tell us in particular about your industry. But let's just talk about the conversations you've been having with industry peers of yours. How is the real estate market in South Africa different from places like Dubai, and not just in South Africa, but the rest of the continent too?
Hi, Gareth. Thank you so much for the platform.
Thank you.
What I've seen since being based in Dubai and being in the real estate market, I'd say that the pace is what Dubai real estate market is really fast-paced. A deal is clinched within a week. We don't have the whole, it's 3 months for a property to be transferred to the new owner's name. You clinch a deal, you sign, speak to work on the next deal. So I don't know where I would say maybe it is technology, as we are speaking on that today, that is maybe keeping us back in Africa. But yeah, that's where we're lacking. Deals take much longer in Africa. I don't know, maybe it could be banks or whatever other security background checks that take place in South Africa or in Africa actually. But in Dubai, everything is fast paced. So I'd say that is the main difference. Apart from that, there's nothing much outside of the pace. Yeah.
Well, while we're talking about money, and property is obviously a form of that, I mean, really, Gabrielle, you're probably the best place to speak about financial services and what's going on the continent from that point of view and how that might have changed, in particular since COVID, but over the last few years.
I think one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that the pandemic has accelerated the need for digital money and digital services. I think different African countries have challenges which are not of their own making. And so now we see an opportunity where it is very clear, I think, to most of us how interconnected we all are, whether we're in the continent or abroad. And so our company's particular mission is to ensure that the various African countries are connected on a global scale and that they have that payment infrastructure to do that. So if I want to tie that back to the future of work, there are pluses and negatives in the sense that we're a fintech startup all day. We only know how to work online, but working online for 18 months in a pandemic can test even the strongest of minds. So
Right.
I think what I wanted to say there is that, yes, we believe in everything digital, but always a balance.
And Deneen, I mean, from your point of view, content has always been something that people consume. It's just the way that they consume it that's probably changed. Maybe you disagree with that too. But a title like Farmers Weekly, which certainly in South Africa has had a very long and prestigious history and an audience, a readership that has been loyal from the get-go. You've changed behavior there. I mean, that's no small achievement.
Hi, Gareth, and hello to the other panelists. Well, yes, just to answer the question and then maybe get to some other points. Absolutely. So it's just we've had to adapt to the way in which our audience wants to receive their information. So while we still have a very loyal readership that enjoys the print magazine, the majority of our audience does now sit online and would rather access the magazine digitally or access information directly via the website. And I think that's been really one of the great strengths and one of the great positives when it comes to technology and the future of work. It's how easy it is for anyone anywhere to access a massive amount of information. So you can be a farmer in the middle of a rural area in Botswana, and you can get advice straight from one of the top farmers in South Africa just by going onto our website. So I think that access of information and the way in which the media now shares information online has made it much easier for people to get advice in real time that can really help them in their businesses and whatever it is they do. But I just want to go back and maybe this to an extent touches also on what Gabriella has said, to also acknowledge the limitations of technology and when we look at the future of job creation and careers in Africa. If we just look at using a cell phone or a smartphone or any device to trade with and to do transacting with, it's easy and it works well, and we've got a lot of tools that people can use for that. But while you can certainly sell your produce, say if you produce cabbages on the one side of the country, you can sell it within a matter of seconds to someone on the other side of the country. But then the problem is getting it there. And I think while it's good to have technology, and while it's certainly helping many people in Africa to make a great leap forward in terms of their job prospects, we cannot forget that needs to be supported by physical infrastructure, by roads, by railways, by all types of logistics. And without that, a lot of the digital technology that we now have will have a limited impact.
Well, all of this obviously represents huge opportunity, and I'd like to ask the three women in this conversation and on this panel, what opportunities there are for women in your various industries, in your various areas of interest, because I think that there is a huge demand among the people of this continent to find meaningful, gainful, and inspiring appointments and jobs in various industries. And maybe it's time also for us to acknowledge that there is this gap to be filled, and we need good people. There are great people in Africa who can fill these gaps. What prospects are there in, first of all, yours, Gabrielle, in the financial services technology sector, in yours with Drisa Realtors, and also in Farmers Weekly and places like that, content businesses? What are the opportunities particularly for women? Nombasa, do you want to start?
Okay, I'll start. Firstly, I think we all know the real estate sector has always been male-dominated. We slowly penetrating the industry as women, and we are there to support women that are interested in entering the industry. I, for one, for example, my entire team here at Drisa Realtors is females, starting from the admin to even my driver. My entire team, I've empowered women, and it's been intentional that I do that because I've seen that the industry is male dominated, but I'm also very motivated into bringing people, women especially, into the industry to show them that, listen, we are also here and we can actually take over the space. And even though I'm based in the UAE, I have formed partnerships with realtors in Africa, especially, not just South Africa. I've got partnerships in Nigeria. I've signed partnerships with various women that are there who have inboxed me. That's how it started. It started with an inbox saying, hey, listen, I'm interested in real estate. I'm based in Abuja, for example. I'm based in, for example. What opportunities are there for me out there in the world, outside of Africa? And I've gone out to say, listen, Africans right now are entering the UAE. We're one of the biggest investors right now, especially in the real estate space. You bring me investors that are interested. Let me teach you about the industry here, and let's grow each other. And we share commission, and that's how we've worked. So
and Deneen, from a content point of view, are there lots of jobs available? Are there places for women in business like yours, content businesses, platforms?
Gareth, there are no jobs particularly for women. All the jobs are open for women. So I think in my editorial team, more than half of the people are women, and all of the top positions are filled by women. And unlike Nombasa, I can't say that was intentional, that we wanted to put women in those positions. They were just the best people for the job. So absolutely, there is space for women, but it's not. From my side, at least, it's not a case of creating opportunities particularly for women, because all of the opportunities are open for women as well.
Right. Well put. Gabrielle, in financial services, is there quite a lot of opportunity there?
Well, I want to echo what Deneen is saying. I mean, obviously there are jobs, plentifully, but I think for financial services, it's very well known that historically it is very male dominated. Same for the tech space. So if you talk about a hybrid like us, which is the financial technology space, the fintech space, you have a very strange dynamic where that space tends to be very venture capital driven, and the venture capitalists are men. And so they tend to support men. And so you don't really see a lot of female CEOs. And so the women who are equally qualified and equally skilled, I find, are reluctant to apply for leadership positions in particular. So that's something that I would really like to see more of. In our organization, we definitely make a proactive attempt to have a very heavy gender bias, but at times it is difficult because the women feel they're not going to be selected, the job will go to a man. And I think that's something that maybe people don't think about enough.
So let's look more generally at the challenges in each of your respective areas of interest, and what Africa provides as opportunities. I mean, Deneen, you just mentioned how, for example, you could buy and sell agricultural produce in a country, and it can be done digitally and it can be done instantaneously. But there are still issues around delivery in certain areas. I mean, are we able to exploit these opportunities and grow businesses from them effectively enough? Or is there still quite a lot of red tape? Is there still quite a lot of confusing and not necessarily clear labor and commercial practice that inhibits some of the growth which may be possible? And perhaps we'll stick to Nombasa's category in property for the moment, realty. How do you find that at Drisa Realtors? Do you find it's easy to do business, or are there still quite a lot of things that get in the way and make it difficult for you to get those gaps and make the best use of them? Nombasa?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, as I said, because it's a previously male-dominated industry, and it involves a lot of visiting sites and doing things that were not particularly seen as very female, especially in the UAE. So the gap, it's been difficult, showing the people there that actually a female can be on site, and we can be in a construction site, we can oversee what is happening. So those are just some of the basic challenges that we've had. Outside of that, I'd say not really. People are trusting.
And sorry, more especially the opportunities that you've seen. I mean, Africa is obviously a place where, as Toby said at the beginning, there are many problems to be solved. Does that represent, in your line of work, does that represent perhaps opportunities for development? We talk about development of property, and in Africa, there's a huge shortage of housing in urban areas, for example. Do you see that as a place that there's enormous potential for growth, for example?
I'd say there is potential for growth, but at the same time, Africa being I'll speak of South Africa, for example, which is the country that I know best, especially in this industry. It is a place of growth, but obviously being a third world country, spending is limited, and we don't really, when people cut back, you'll see with COVID, for example, real estate is one of the industries that were hardly hit during the pandemic. So when it comes to property in South Africa, for example, we do have that hit where when people need to cut back, it will be one of the industries that are highly hit, especially the commercial side and the high-end side of real estate.
Toby, you and your business. Yes, of course.
About the construction industry, in which I actually have a bit of a family interest. My mother was the 14th woman architect in South Africa. She was the first person to graduate, I think it was from Pretoria University's engineering faculty, the first person who was English, a woman, and was Jewish. And I've literally been on building sites my whole life, and I can just echo what you say, Nombasa. There is no reason for woman not to be involved in the whole construction process. My late brother was a builder, property developer in the words of the day. And when he died, I ran his construction company. And I agree with you. My mother is living proof that you can be on site and do stuff. So I've seen that in my life, and my mother's 93 now. So, it's great that trailblazers like her and like you are keeping everybody real. Sorry, Gareth, you were about to ask a much more interesting question.
Not at all. I appreciate your comment, because I think a lot of people need to hear these stories. They're not all stories about just our generation, and there are these brave pioneers who've gone ahead of us and done quite incredible things. But Toby, you spend a lot of your time looking at technological innovation. There's a huge hunger for this information in Africa, and we now, because of the mobile devices, which all of us carry, we're now able to access information at an unprecedented rate. Do you think that because of that, there are more and more people who are finding, let's say, more informal channels of educating themselves and making themselves available in the job market? I mean, we talk about the future of work, but really, I think credentialism is probably going to become less and less important in places like Africa, where we just want people who are experts, whether they are educated experts or streetwise experts in their fields. And we have plenty of streetwise people, don't you agree?
I totally agree, and in fact, there's a brilliant test case of what you've just proposed, which is Andela, the great, originally Kenyan, but now it has offices in Kampala, it has offices in Kenya. It is a brilliant example of young, talented developers getting work anywhere around the world, and originally they were based in these various offices in the capitals of these three different countries, Nigeria, Kenya, and Kenya, yes. And anyway, so yes, Uganda, sorry. And what's happened is that they have been, because of COVID, everybody's been working from home, and it turns out to be a business model that works for them as well. I mean, the last round of investments I think they got was $100 million. Mark Zuckerberg's foundation, him and his wife's foundation, are investors. The first place he went to, in one of the places he went to in Lagos was Andela. The first place he went to was the famous CC Hub. So there's lots of talent, and I think what's really fantastic is that talent is being acknowledged, and talent is getting opportunities. That's what's really fantastic. Yes. Excuse me, I have a small Shap who's eating supper. This is another hallmark of working from home.
Yeah. Just to dwell on that for a second, I know one of the guys, Lungisa, who's one of the founders of Yoko, which is an incredible technology platform, allows people to do card transactions from pretty much anywhere. And even a 3G or signal, which is much less powerful. And it's really revolutionized the way that even, a small-scale artist on the side of the road is able to sell their wares now without having to deal in cash only. And these kinds of things are precisely what Toby hinted at earlier. They're the products of necessity rather than the products of luxury. And while in many countries it's really important to have the latest generation technology, we manage here with sometimes stuff that's not necessarily as up to date in terms of the latest model of something, but people are making do, and they're doing very well out of that. They're able to make networks of customers, sell their wares online. People are able to send each other money. I mean, Gabrielle, there's so much opportunity in that, isn't there?
It's huge. I know we're running out of time, but it is massive. And I think the only thing I did want to say, just as a soundbite, is people think, at least some people think about Africa as risk, and they don't understand the extent of the opportunity. And so in the last 12 months, we've seen an adoption of digital assets, for example, explode by 1,200%. That's unprecedented. And so if we talk about digital money and we talk about connectivity, Africa is the Garden of Eden. And I really hope that more entrepreneurs and traditional players see this digital revolution and support it and help the economies to grow.
Well, I'm going to give Deneen the last word then on this. Deneen, what do you see as the opportunities, and what do you see as the as the biggest challenges for our continent.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo what Gabrielle said. I think everywhere you go, at least everywhere where I've been in Africa, you see the most brilliant entrepreneurs. And I think that's what's really exciting, is that the digital age that we're living in, and with the tools that we have, it really does support entrepreneurs to build their businesses and sort of to start smaller businesses, which I think is very important in Africa. So I think that's a real opportunity to see more entrepreneurs start their small businesses using these tools. When it comes to the challenges, definitely the red tape that there is still in terms of trading in Africa. Hopefully, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is going to help solve some of that really, really debilitating red tape that still exists in terms of African countries and nations trading with each other.
I think that's a very good note to end it on. I know that you've been having a couple of connection issues there, Nombasa, and I know Toby was in and out as well, but I appreciate everybody's time on this panel. So a big thank you to all of our participants and for all the great comments and questions that we got. Thank you all very, very much. I'm going to hand over to our MC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was amazing to hear this conversation. I wish we had more time, but please, a virtual round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to our iconic speakers for the kickoff panel. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have each of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, our kickoff panel of the session, African Perspectives and Career Dialogues. And I think it was amazing to also go beyond that conversation to speak a little bit to the culture and the environment of business also that's happening across the African continent. So it was a pleasure to have our iconic speakers. Please give another round of applause. The team is sending out their information, their LinkedIn contact handles for the rest of the audience to be able to connect with. So thank you so much for that. Without further ado, I'm going to kick it off with the next speaker, our headline, one of our first keynote speakers for today. So let's get the 30-second countdown and welcome them to the stage. Hello and welcome. It's a pleasure to have you, Jean Grayling. I pass it over to you for keynote remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was great listening to the panel to kick off today. I've made a recording of my presentation and you can listen to it about getting the children from Africa over the digital divide. In 2018, Richard Akoto from Ghana became famous with this photo, which went viral, of him drawing the word screen on a blackboard to teach his learners computer literacy. Within weeks, he received PCs and tablets from all over the world for his learners in Ghana. It was very encouraging to see how he was using his laptops to teach his learners computers and Excel and Word. But the question I want to ask, is this helping learners from Africa over the digital divide? The analogy I want to use regarding the digital divide is this, which you see often in Africa, learners crossing a river to get to school. And in a sense, what Richard is doing in Ghana for his class is what this adult is doing, carrying a young learner across a river to get to school. But then we have realities in Africa. 16,000 schools in South Africa do not have computer labs. 5% of secondary schools in Ghana have computers. 89% of learners in Africa have no access to computers at home. According to ICT Works, these are the challenges facing computer education in Kenyan schools: a lack of computers, dysfunctional labs, expensive computers, a lack of electricity, lack of internet, a lack of qualified teachers, teacher intimidation, and security. And although this adult can carry one learner over the river to get to school, there's no ways that this adult can carry a whole school across that river. So keeping in mind the computer backlog of schools in Africa, This cannot be the best solution to take learners across the digital divide. So how do we get them across the digital divide? Which brings me to the Unplugged Coding project, which we are driving in South Africa. And the objectives of this program are the following: no need for computers, no need for electricity, no need for the internet, basic teacher training, physical fun activities, low budget intervention, and definitely no compromise on quality. And if you look at the challenges that are faced in Kenya, it addresses all of these bullets. So there must be some value to this strategy. So the first thing we need to do to demystify coding is to teach learners that programming is simply a list of instructions that tells a computer what to do. And what better way to start than hopscotch, that's played all over Africa, or rope skipping, and if you watch them carefully, there's definitely some loop logic in that. A very basic activity in class is the learner a shoe and a chair with posters that give them different commands. And on the right hand side you can see how grade 1 learners are taught about programming as a list of instructions. A wise man once said, you cannot translate from Swahili to English if you do not understand Swahili. That means you can't code if you cannot solve problems. So in our project we focus a lot on problem solving and computational thinking, and we've developed 40 different activities that teaches learners these skills. I love this photo of learners waiting for a taxi on the pavement and being given a problem-solving activity to solve. Or we encourage teachers to even go to social media like Pinterest and to find some very practical problem-solving activities they can do in their coding clubs. Our flagship tool has been the Tanks coding app, which makes use of tangible tokens and image recognition to teach learners how to code by packing the tokens in a certain sequence. And for each challenge, they need to direct the tank to a destination. So in this scenario, the tank needs to move backwards, turn left, and then move forward twice. So the learner packs out the code using the puzzle pieces, takes a photo of the code. When happy that it's the correct puzzle pieces that were recognized, you press yes and your tank moves. And once again, we encourage teachers to take the activity outside before they play on the mobile phone. The 35 levels in the game become quite complex, introducing for loops, while loops, nested constructs, and optimization. With the assistance of various corporate sponsors, we've now reached over 25,000 learners in direct workshops, and our coding kits have been distributed to over 500 schools. A coding kit costs $200. And now we are ready to take our new Rangers game throughout Africa. The coding game Rangers was developed to introduce learners to coding without the use of computers. But it goes much further than just introducing learners to coding. It also teaches them soft skills like group work, communication, strategy, problem solving. So what we do is we use a few cell phones and some customized tokens, visit schools where the learners then play for 45 minutes to an hour. And during these workshops, they're introduced to coding, but we can also see the dynamics of group work. This can also take the form of a coding club at schools, where schools can run this weekly or daily without needing fancy and expensive computer laboratories. We've added to this game the concept of game poaching, and they literally have to try and save the rhino by catching the game poacher before the game poacher gets to the rhino. They also get information about game poaching in Africa. This way they are informed on environmental issues on our continent. We've trained over 1,000 teachers this year in the Unplugged Coding project, and this is the general feedback we get. They find that coding has been demystified. They realize that they don't need tech. They know how to integrate it in class. They leave the training with self-confidence. They know where to start, and because they enjoyed the training, they know their learners will enjoy. These are the skills that are predicted to be important by 2025: analytical thinking, active learning, problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, leadership, reasoning, and programming. I am not convinced by putting learners in front of screens in a lab is the best way to teach them these skills. These are learners from Soweto, Johannesburg, busy with a coding activity, interacting with the physical world on the tiles in their classroom. When I look at their body language, I think they learn more of these skills. I strongly believe that in using unplugged coding, we've found and have a much better way in Africa to get our learners over the digital divide.
All right. There we have keynote remarks from Jean. I'm going to bring him back. Any closing remarks?
Yes, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity, and it's always a privilege to share with people what we're trying to do to bring the African child over the digital divide. And there is I've given my email address. I'll type it in the comments if people want to make contact. But thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. It was truly inspiring, the work that you do. Thank you so much for sharing it with all of us here at the Africa Future Summit community.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I saw a lot of comments regarding his work there. So thank you so much, everyone. I know the team is sharing his contact information. And again, Professor Jean Grayling, acting Department of Computing Science at Nelson Mandela University, sharing about his work with Unplugged. Truly an inspiring initiative to watch. I'm going to now transition 30-second countdown to our next keynote speaker. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Please give a warm round of virtual applause to Angela Harrington, Vice President, Communications and External Relations at Berkeley College and founder of Women Entrepreneurship Week. It's an honor and pleasure to welcome you to the Africa Future Summit. I pass it over to you. Just come right back. Just unmute. This is the virtual world we're living in. I'll pass it over back to you.
I just say, Christine, I do this every day, and I'm in communications, and I still do it. I've been doing it for 2 years. So it's great to be here and such a privilege to be a part of the Africa Future Summit. Good day, Africa. It is a pleasure to be here at the GSE Africa Future Summit. I would like to thank Busi Metsiko Andan for inviting me to be a part of this event. Thank you, Busi, and thank you to the entire Africa Future team working behind the scenes to make this day possible. It is an honor to join you in this important action-centered dialogue on scaling the future trade and tech hubs of Africa. If you have ever taken a trip to New York City or to the New York metropolitan area, one of the first images you will encounter is the Statue of Liberty. Lady Liberty stands as a symbol of freedom and equality. The rays from her crown defy the darkness. Her torch illuminates hope and opportunity. Many of those individuals who come to the United States seeking opportunity and equality have migrated from Africa. These individuals make significant contributions to the vitality of the United States as leaders in all aspects of our society. I run an annual Women's Entrepreneurship Week, initiative at Berkeley College. I can share with you the names of many women from Africa who empower our communities right here in New York City. Women who hold elected office, those who own businesses and lead economic development initiatives, and those who are educating our children and future generations of leaders, including our domestic and international students at Berkeley College. These women have introduced us to the brilliance of Africa, its people, its history, its innovation, its commerce, its traditions, and its potential. Africa is a continent filled with hope and limitless opportunities. Women comprise half of the continent's 1.4 billion population. Advancing equity for women in Africa is where the greatest potential lies. In Africa and around the world, women have been at the forefront of exposing equity gaps magnified by the COVID-19 pandemic. In order to scale the future trade and tech hubs of Africa, we must build scalable solutions to providing equitable pathways to opportunities. Scalable solutions that address social, economic, and humanitarian disparities. Equal pay for equal work is non-negotiable. Globally, women earn 77 cents to the dollar as our male counterparts, and the gap widens for women with children. The gender-based disparities go beyond equal pay for equal work. They touch on areas such as childcare, education, technology and digital access, business and entrepreneurship, financial empowerment, and healthcare. The majority of women entrepreneurs say they start businesses to meet their family needs, and that flexibility is more important than making the most money. Offering workers flexibility should not compromise their earnings. There are many female founders who once worked for large corporations and experienced resistance moving up the career ladder, so they paved their own pathway forward. You will hear from some of these women, some of these female founders at today's summit. Businesses need a labor force to survive and thrive. Oxfam, a global organization focused on eradicating inequality to end poverty and injustice, reported an exodus of more than 64 million women from the global workforce in 2020. This equates to 5% of women leaving their jobs and $800 billion in lost income. Women are leaving the labor force because of responsibilities as primary caregivers in their households. The value of unpaid care work, most of which is performed by women, is $10.8 trillion. By exiting the workforce, women have further exposed the disparities in childcare. They have demonstrated that the foremost priority is the safety and well-being of our children. They have said, we will not sacrifice our children for $1, a pound, a rupee, or a rand. The lack of childcare in industrialized, emerging, and developing nations presents a socioeconomic dilemma, not just for Africa, but for the majority of the countries around the world, including the United States. Accelerating the economy of Africa entails enabling the participation of women in the workforce and providing pathways to business ownership. These two objectives, enabling a productive workforce and establishing more women-owned businesses, can be accomplished through the development of an opportunity infrastructure that offers scalable solutions to social, educational, and financial inequities, and prioritizes access to resources that activate and accelerate economic growth. What does an opportunity infrastructure look like? The infrastructure supports childcare, flexible work, education, digitally connected communities, and economic empowerment. Universal childcare would enable women to participate in the labor force with peace of mind that their children are being cared for in a safe environment. Flexible work would provide compensation and extended time off for family issues and family care needs. UNICEF has a plan that offers a mix of paid maternity, paternity, and parental leave for mothers and fathers. Access to education is critical at all levels, with a focus on adult literacy and experiential learning in technology, e-commerce, and growth industries such as healthcare, clean energy, and the environment. A special emphasis should be directed toward underrepresented agricultural areas, which are often lacking in educational resources for women and children. We can learn from Carol Boer, CEO of Carol Boer Productions and a speaker at today's summit, who is also a special advocate for UNICEF South Africa's Influential Women's Forum. And she is also an instrumental advocate for the children of South Africa. A key area for higher education is professional development. Partnerships with colleges and universities would bring an ability to reskill and upskill the labor force. It is crucial for women to acquire the technical competencies to advance innovation and opportunities in the digital economy. Equipping startup entrepreneurs and the overall workforce with basic digital skills would increase business development and trade and commerce, along with wages and flexible work options. One of the emerging women in tech in Africa is Regina Honu, founder and CEO of Saranko Solutions, a software development firm and social enterprise based in Ghana. Honu also started the Saranko Academy, the first coding and human-centered design school for children and young adults based in West Africa, in Accra, the capital of Ghana. Honu's socially responsible approach helps prepare students for careers in the digital economy. It is incumbent upon business and industry to collaborate with communities, including educational institutions and governmental and non-governmental organizations, to accelerate opportunities for all. Kibonin Nifi of Bamenda, Cameroon, CEO of Cameroon Clothing Company and a speaker at today's summit, says going back to school was a way for her to develop a more sustainable plan for her brand. She produces garments made from fabrics worn by royalty in her home country, and she employs women in her hometown. Digitally connected communities are integral to the opportunity infrastructure. Just 25% of Africa has access to the internet. A wide-spanning digital infrastructure would increase opportunities across all sectors of African society, including commerce and industry, business ownership and entrepreneurship, education, finance, the environment, healthcare, and communications. One example of how digital inequities are being addressed is the Digital Economy for Africa initiative by the World Bank, which is working toward digitally enabling every person, business, and government in Africa by 2030 through a collaborative, community-centered approach. The Brookings Institution reports that internet access has led to the creation of 1.7 million jobs and has added $144 billion to Africa's economy, which is the equivalent of 8.5% of the continent's gross domestic product. Digitally grounded businesses are well poised for growth. Based on an analysis of the International Finance Corporation in partnership with the European Commission, the African e-commerce market could expand by up to $14.5 billion if the number of women selling on online platforms attains parity with the number of men selling. training, and more access to financing are two key factors that will help women-owned businesses increase their impact. Gabriel Patrick, CEO of Nabu, whom you just heard from, is a crypto clearing bank based in London. The bank serves the blockchain community. Her firm is focused on providing blockchain solutions for the fintech industry and extends banking services for small to medium-sized businesses and crypto companies. In order to scale the future trade and tech hubs of Africa, we must attain scalable solutions to achieving gender equity. An opportunity infrastructure sets the foundation to move Africa's digital economy forward and the lives of the people of Africa forward. As the continent's digital economy advances, the tech hubs of Africa are beacons of hope and opportunity. From Lagos to Johannesburg and Accra to Nairobi, there is a significant role for women to play in every facet of Africa's growth. The future is Africa. Enjoy the summit.
Thank you so much, Angela Harrington. It was an honor to hear you. And thank you so much for such informative remarks. There was a lot of insight packed in there. It was a pleasure. Welcome again to the Africa Future Summit community.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Bye. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Some remarks from Angela Harrington of Berkeley College. Really profound insights in there as well. I saw a lot of comments on the chat feed regarding some of the stats that she was sharing with the group. Feel free. I know the team is sharing her contact information via LinkedIn, networking and engage. Of course, we still have more to go. Right now, we're going to transition and give you guys a brief 2-minute break as we transition to our next panel. It's going to kick off right after the break. It's going to have some iconic speakers discussing trade, retail, and fashion. So I'm really excited to kick that off. So in the meantime, take a brief 2-minute recess as we give some transition videos about some experiences of programs that we hosted here at the Global Startup Ecosystem. So we'll see you back here after break in 2 minutes.
One thing that I always find really interesting is how many people kind of all agree that this is the time for Africa to shine and there is a lot happening out there, but no one has really taken the step to do anything.
We see many African SMEs that, they have the potential to become a successful, African, but also global traders as well. So that's the first point.
I said education helps us to understand our problems, but also come up with solutions to them. Technology helps us to scale out the solution.
You'll find that we are likely to hold positions of power across the globe, regardless of what our representation is. We often have to overcome so many barriers and constraints in life and have to work twice as hard than our male counterparts to access those positions of power.
I just want to say this experience has shown me that Africa is home to an incredibly diverse group of talented and innovative people, including entrepreneurs and business leaders who are poised to make a difference and make significant contributions across Africa, as well as to the global economy.
If you've been to Africa, or if you're African, you know exactly what I'm talking about. With especially in Uganda, we have 45 million people, with only less than 40% have access to internet.
I have a lot of hope for the AFCFTA because, as you know, being in this space for a long time, I realized that it righted the wrong of the way in which we've approached trade and trade policy, the way we've approached investment policy, which is the other part of the marriage, and the way we have ignored industrial policy.
Now, as we all know, Africa is going to quadruple its population in the next 2 decades. In other words, in the next 2 decades, 1 in every 4 person on planet Earth is going to be African. Now, 70% of that is below 25 years. So Africa is a very youthful population, and Africa is going to unleash a very youthful population on the world.
So no matter where you are in the world, you can find talent in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Tanzania, all around. But our people and our young professionals need to be upskilled and be informed about how to do effective work, even if it's remote.
Welcome, Tech Summit Nigeria. It's exciting to see so many of you connecting online, learning collaboratively, partnering with and encouraging each other.
Introduce yourself to the global community and share with us what has been a unique initiating idea that you've done this year through your institution to support entrepreneurs.
We'll talk about very, very briefly the startup investment portfolio theory by my mentor, David Rose, and hopefully we'll then get to look at the different investment stages.
One is about pricing. Pricing is also another friction point. And if you think about it, there is quite a lot of literature and research and models on pricing.
One of the things I've learned on the job basically is that people really don't buy your products, they buy your story.
So one of the US government's goals is to promote entrepreneurship worldwide because entrepreneurship serves as the backbone of free economies around the world.
Social capital is really from the connections that you make with people that allow them to be able to make decisions and for you to influence them to do things for you in a positive way.
The reason I want to share it is that I want to inspire Nigerians that are watching us today to think about building something that will answer the need of their society, the need of their community, and the need of their family, because in doing that, they will be answering a greater challenges that their community are facing at large.
Development. If you watching this right now are able to learn how to learn new skills, right? Or that can help you be competitive in the marketplace. You don't have to go anywhere.
As in, people want to understand the dynamics of the African market as from a consumer perspective.
We need more companies that are able, and more startups and more solutions that are able to train people at scale, but also being able to match these people to jobs.
For the first time for this country, I see say young people come together, do something. Nobody talk about the kind church where they go, the kind God where they pray to, the tribe where you come from, the language where you speak, the clique where you dey, the economic class where you dey. I just dey for everything just dey happen like clockwork.
All right, welcome back from break. Hopefully you enjoy those two videos. Of course, we host so many programs here at GSC, spreading the message of technology and innovation across emerging markets. So that was a recap clip of last year's Africa Future Summit and a window into our Nigeria Tech Summit. You'll see more experiences of work that we do across Ghana, Haiti, and around the world. But without further ado, I do look forward to now introducing our next keynote speaker for the Africa Future Summit. Carol Bauer, a businesswoman and humanitarian, will be right up next on a 30-second countdown. Hello and welcome, Carol Bauer. It's an honor to welcome you as a keynote speaker at the Africa Future Summit. I pass
I'm
it
not
over
able to hear.
for your keynote remarks.
That's normal.
Carol, you're all set? We can hear you loud and clear.
Christine, I can see myself, so I suspect you're talking to me.
Yes.
I hope you haven't asked the question because for some reason I can't hear you.
But go ahead. We can hear you loud and clear.
All right, darling. I can read sign language. Thank you so much for having me. I was enjoying the robust chat, not realizing you'd actually lost me, but it's wonderful to be here. And congratulations to you and the team. Congratulations, Busi Matiko, and everybody just on this incredible platform. It's been quite enlightening listening. I'd like to greet the delegates. I'd like to say to everybody, thank you for taking the time to sit and be part of the solutions. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity to just commune with you, to be with you this evening. From South Africa, my name is Carol Bauer, and I am the incoming chairperson of Swap Anything. I sit on the board of Noble Foundation, ensuring that art education is made democratic for everybody. And I'm also just a producer in the television sector, very excited to be in conversation with not just my nation, but with the world. I'm pleased to join join you and to join this illustrious group of individuals making a difference on our continent and in the world. The conversations have really just been so rich and inspiring, but I have to be completely honest. As a woman in business on this continent, I'm satiated with inspiration. There's enough inspiration going around. What I'm concerned about is the next phase. What's next? The answer to the question, what now that we are inspired? It is my hope that after today's contributions, after today's pontifications and musings, we will have an answer to what ought to happen now. If we're not going to have the answer, then the talks are all just meaningless. I was reading the Africa Continental Free Trade Report area in preparation for this, and it was looking specifically on women in trade. And it says active engagement in the trade policy space is what we should be looking at. While it is recognized that women face specific challenges, the active engagement of women in trade in the policy space is critical. We know this. Put differently, for their needs to be addressed, women must voice them. Furthermore, rather than individually engage policymakers, it is important that women approach the trade policy space in a unified voice. Well, I end the quote there. I agree with all this. The sentiment is really what we all share, but I also hold the view that women must not only seek to be given opportunities to participate, they must recognize their power, the power that we have in us, in our numbers, to just disrupt unapologetically. We've waited long enough. We must demand sustainable and inclusive socioeconomic development which recognizes gender equality, inclusion, and just broader inclusion that does not just presuppose heteronormative norms. Everything else has to be seen as equal to that which we have always decided needed to take precedence. That which we've ignored for a long time, take that and internalize it. Imagine yourself being in that position where you tick so many boxes of exclusion that you begin to feel unaffected and disinterested. We can't have that. We can't have the smartest part of our societies not participate because they feel excluded by just, hearing the same voices all the time. It must be recognized that women face barriers that compromise their active participation in the trade space. So what are we doing to break down those barriers? Now, my own experience has been tempered not only by my gender and my race, but geopolitical factors too. We know that counts for something, right? In the distribution of, vaccines, we saw that where you are in the world matters. It is for this reason that I've agreed to join you today, because you are solution seekers. And I've agreed to join you because I think it is time we showed up for conversations that will result in different outcomes for future generations, but for ourselves while we're here. Let us continue to talk about what we want now, but also how we're going to secure it and secure these gains such that no progress can be reversed. It is my hope that when we come out of these conversations today, we will proceed differently. We will act differently for a future that envisages women not propping up economies that continue to work against them, but that guarantee maximum inertia going forward. Let's push harder. Let's push louder. African women have never waited for the legislative frameworks that now invite us into spaces we were never wanted or welcomed. No. We've always found ways to contribute because we knew that our future and that of our children and society at large, it could not wait for legislators. It could not wait for patriarchy apologists and a generally unbothered governance system to catch up. We tilled the soil with our children on our backs. We fed them and we sent them to school and we held the fort while men went to the big cities and searched for gold. When they did not return, we were okay. We just continued to keep the home fires burning as we lived not just for the desires of our hearts, but for our families, for our communities. Now, a recently released report from Insight, it's called Insight to Action by the United Nations. It says that the pandemic will push 96 million people into extreme poverty. And this was being projected for this year. 47 million of those are women and girls. I reckon it's even higher. Now, this will bring the total number of women and girls living on under $1.90 to 435 million. That level of hunger we cannot live with and be okay. We must roll up our sleeves, Africa. Harnessing our resources for the growth of Africa is critical. It is urgent. Securing control and participation in industries that rely on what is found under our feet, our gold, our platinum, our chromium, our diamonds, and all that grows under our feet. Securing it is a revolutionary act, and it will help us give full effect to the ideals held dear by our forebears. Assets are being traded that we know and we see emanating from our backyards, yet we lie in wait to be saved by those who are smarter than us in using our assets. And then we blame them, not taking responsibility for our apathy, not taking responsibility for just how we hand over that which we should be handing to future generations, our children. We just hand it over for the most convenient conversations, for the most convenient access to things that are not going to fortify our continent and make it better and make it stronger. Africa has to be committed to manufacturing. It is no longer negotiable. Handmade is a cry for sustainability, but it also a cry for our pride. We must skill our people and stop assuming one model applies to all. Our education systems have to take into account that we're different, our circumstances are different, and we have to ensure that we have the perfect fit for each environment. We have the numbers to ensure trade can rely on economies of scale, where this continent is concerned at least. And we must be smart in using that volume for the good of all. Of all. Not just of some, not just for a chosen few. This is how we create a greater community for trade, for medicines development, for greater collaboration that recognizes our interconnectedness. Learning from the Jewish community. Look what they do, how they support and just stand in the gap for one another. That's not something to criticize, that's something to learn from. The Indian community does the same. I just hope that we will realize that as many times as their dollar, their lira, their real, their whatever currency, as it circulates amongst them, therein lies a lesson for us. In the mining community, it is even worse, because oftentimes that dollar, that rand, that kwacha, that shilling that we speak of, it does not even enter their pockets. The money leaves before it is even paid to them. Let us arm our people with knowledge and save this continent. Let us ensure our young have skills over and above what we're currently doing. Let us police our borders for the growth rather than the exclusion that we continue to trumpet. Entrepreneurs, all of you gathered here today, I am here because I am absolutely certain that you can change this. You have the power. Let's change the narrative. Let's not cry about it. Let's skill our people. Let us choose beneficiation. Let us choose Africa. Let us choose Africa because certainly she's chosen us. And before you go and start to emulate others, be firm, be clear about who you are. Africa belongs to all who live in her, and she belongs to all who are passionate about her growth, about her resurgence, about this wonderful, wonderful continent that we all claim to love. Let us embrace our collective might and use it for a far greater good, and not for posturing to show off our wealth, when the most important wealth we have, our children, are going to have to clean up our mess. I have faith in you. I'm so glad you invited me to be a part of this. I've grown so much from listening. I shall be listening more. Have a good evening for those of us who are on this part of the world. And for our dear friends in the US, have a great day.
Wow. Such powerful remarks, Carol Bauer. It was an honor and such an inspiration to hear you. Thank you so much for giving your time here to the Africa Future Summit community. Thank you so much.
Christine, job well done. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wow, such a powerful way to transition the conversation. And I'm looking forward to hearing people's reactions to that. I'm seeing the chat feed, I'm seeing a lot of love and energy being shared, especially for all my female entrepreneurs. If that's not a symbol of power, elegance, and just pure love and passion, I don't know what else to say. So thank you so much. Let me kick it off to the next panel that's coming up. 30-second countdown begins now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome as our welcome back Boosie to kick off the panel, Scaling African Fashion in the Global Market. Boosie, I pass it over to you. I'm so excited about this panel.
I am too, Christine. Thank you so much. This summit is off to an amazing start. The speakers have been phenomenal. Their panels have been amazing. I'm just so excited by what's happening. I'm so excited for Africa. I want to welcome the panelists. I'm just really intrigued by what's happening. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected production and has led to the collapse of the brick and mortar sales. We've seen fashion shows and events such as pop-up shows, designer productions, festivals postponed or even canceled, affecting sales and heavily disrupting the fashion industry globally. And of course, particularly hitting Africa hard. This has forced designers to scramble for an online presence and to build their brands online. For the purposes of this panel, we want to focus on the opportunities and strengths for Africa fashion, as the world likes to focus on the negatives surrounding Africa and not the positive. While in the West, as I've said, and I've borrowed this from other people, digital is an innovation, and Africa is the beginning, and it's leveling the playing field for Africa. I would like to welcome the panelists. There's Kibonen Mfi, the creative director of the Kibonen brands, as well as the CEO of the Cameroon clothing line. We also have Kanye Mashimbye, who is the consultant for the Afrexim Bank Intra-Africa Trade Initiative. And we have Roberta Annan, who's a co-founder and managing partner of the Impact Fund for African Creatives, as well as Regina. We have Regina Jane Gier, who is the editor-in-chief, as well as the managing partner for the New African Women's magazine. And so I would like to welcome you, panelists. I'm looking forward to an amazing panel. We don't have much time. We have about 30 minutes to share our thoughts, but I believe this is just a precursor to great things for fashion in Africa. We are going to focus on the scaling of African fashion. And I would like to start with you introducing yourselves briefly. To give a 1-minute introduction of yourself. I'll start with Kibonen. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Congratulations to the Africa Summit team. I am Kibonen Mfi. I am the creative director for Kibonen Brands, and I am the CEO of Cameroon Clothing Company. Thank you.
And I move it over to Roberta. We've lost Roberta. What about Kanye? Kanye, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Wusi. Thank you so much for this opportunity and congratulations on an amazing event. My name is Kanye Mashimbye. I am from South Africa. I currently am the consultant for Afrexim Bank, focused on the creative and cultural industries within the Intra-Africa Trade Initiative. And my background is in fashion retail buying for almost 2 decades there, and also having co-founded a footwear manufacturing business that is based in South Africa, in Durban. Thank you. I look forward to the discussions.
Awesome. Welcome, Roberta. Roberta, please introduce yourself in about a minute.
Sorry, I don't know what I clicked on. My name is Roberta Annan. I'm dialing in from Accra, Ghana. I'm the founder of African Fashion Foundation, a nonprofit organization that has been around for a decade, nurturing raw talent in the African fashion industry, and also the managing partner and founder of the newly launched Impact Fund for African Creatives, which is an investment platform that is investing not only for the entire gamut of creativity. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks Africa Future Summit for putting this platform together. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Roberta, for those remarks. Regina, welcome. You're on mute. Could you please introduce yourself in 1 minute? You're muted. Okay. Please try going at the bottom of your screen. Can you see it? I think Regina is having, so anyway, we'll move forward and then we can always come back to Regina. Kibonen, I'd like to pose this question to you. You've launched the Cameroon clothing company in your home country, Cameroon, which uses fashion to empower designers. How do independent designers in the marginalized markets, such as across the continent of Africa, gain a foothold in global markets?
Thank you, Busi, for that question. Actually, the reason behind us setting up Cameroon Clothing Company was really because our designers, myself included, found it really hard to get production going. Because if you know how it works in Africa, it's mostly people just going to tailors and having them make what they need. But when that is done, you realize there is no uniformity, there is no consistency. And for me, it was a very personal project because I did not want to get my production done in any other place besides on the continent. So pulling back a little bit on my brand to be able to focus on getting a certain kind of production done, not completely managed by me, but getting professionals to manage it was what I needed to do, such that once I get back into production, I am competitive and I can produce at a certain number. Cameroonian designers have also suffered a lot, and it's not just Cameroon, it's Africa for the most part. And us being able to help them produce in a way that it's global, you know, it's competitive, the finishing is right, the grading is right. Just that aspect of the production was what was really particular for me. And so far, it's going, it's slow because we still need a lot of professionalism or professionals to help us, but we are walking along that path and we will soon be there.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Regina, you're back on. We're so happy to have you. Please introduce yourself in 1 minute. And also, I have a question for you. You covered Africa fashion for decades and brought Africa fashion to the world via your platforms, the New African magazine, as well as currently the New African Woman as editor and managing director. How do you feel about the evolution of Africa fashion these past 15 years, and what are the what trends are you observing? Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, and apologies, I had a hitch there in the beginning. I think you've already introduced me. I'm the editor of the New African Woman magazine, which has been running for the past, I think, 13 years now. Coming to the question, because I'm aware of the time, I'll be as brief as I can. I think African fashion should be everywhere. That's my view for as we evolve. I mean, it has been evolving. And when you come to the question of trends, let me first handle the question of trend. I think that question for me, I always have a little bit of a fickle of how to describe trend. Trends come and pass. And I think the talent, as you have heard from Kibonen, the talent in Africa is so immense that we need to move from just being a trend and take advantage of what is there. So it has evolved quite a lot in the past 15 years, as you have stated. But what has been the benefit to the designers, such as Kibonen, as you have heard, has speak on the hurdles that they face. And I think it's a question of putting in more political will, and the mantra that I get from most of the designers that we have worked with in the past few years is that there's just no crucial, or I mean, no support that actually trickles down to scale up the industry. And I think that's where the crux of the matter is how do we scale up the industry apart from just having, this season's trend is, bell bottoms, this season's trend. So I think we need to move the conversation beyond the aesthetic of the fashion as we see them on the catwalks, the fashion weeks, to how it trickles down to benefiting not just the designers, just as the continent as a whole. And I think this is where, the CFTA and is now coming in to probably look into those things. And I think we have a panelist who is going to talk about that. And so there's some layers that are coming in now that are being put in place. And I really look forward to what is going to come out of the IATF in Durban this year. And also, I think the governments and just the private sector and institutions such as Afrexim Bank, I think they're all coming in now to see how we can scale up the fashion industry, the creative industry in Africa beyond catwalks, fashion weeks, and so on. And we need to educate the designers through platforms such as ours, the New African Woman, and other publications that are Pan-African and with a global appeal on the advantages that these platforms, such as the CFTA, and I think we've got PAPs coming up on how you can trade, within internally in Africa, and how that can benefit the creative industry, including the African fashion designers. I can go on, but I'm aware of the time limitations. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Regina, for that insight. And that leads me into Kanye. Kanye, you happen to be in an interesting role. You've been a footwear designer, and also you're creative, and you're currently the consultant at the Afrexim Bank regarding intra-African trade initiatives, where you deal with creatives. And I would like to see that piece, the moving piece from where you stand as a creative designer, as well as the financing part of things. We usually hear of phantom funds, whereby people feel that's ways of funding. But what do you think designers need to get to that place, to get the right funding? Because we know Africans are clearly very innovative, very hardworking, very resourceful. It's just a matter of tightening these nuts and bolts.
Yes, thank you so much for that question, Wusi. Indeed, I am in a very interesting position in the sense that my background is a creative background, but I spent almost 2 decades in the business of fashion as a fashion retail buyer. And therefore, I sit also on the side of the offtake, not only just the supply of the demand of the product. And just to take it back to your question about being at Afrexim Bank and what we're trying to do within the Intra-African Trade Initiative. The bank has acknowledged and recognizes that the creative and cultural industries play a fundamental role in transforming societies purely, firstly and foremost. Oh, I'm so sorry, my phone. Firstly, from a social cohesion perspective and growth, but also from an economic transformation perspective. And the creative and cultural industries, by their nature, tend to benefit the most disenfranchised groups like youth and women. And therefore, the bank has committed to the creative and cultural industries within the continent and has created a fund which is there to support and to help build these industries and actually scale them and to create interventions that are there to support, because giving access to finance is one thing. Money is not always the solution. Sometimes you need other factors like skills development, like infrastructure development, transacting, making the ease of transacting better. I think, Regina, you mentioned that there's a lack of political will to support the creative sectors. And the bank also has recognized that and also plays an advocacy role. So we also interact a lot with the African Union. We interact with a lot of other bodies that have a vested interest in these industries, this including the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, in building policies and communicating with different governments and bodies to make sure that we define the vision of where we want to take or how we want to approach the industrialization of these sectors. So Afrexim Bank has got a specific program which is focused on supporting the creative and cultural industries. This includes music, film, fashion. It's a very broad spectrum. And the name of the program is called the Creative Africa Nexus. And the work of the Creative Africa Nexus is not necessarily to give access to the financing, but it is to create supportive interventions that ready businesses to be able to get the financing that they require. Generally, the creative and cultural industries tend to be fragmented, they tend to be informal, and therefore banks don't necessarily take them seriously, and they're very hard to lend to. And the bank recognizes this and wants to play that interventionist role to say, as a bank, we want to help you, but we know we can't help you as you are. These are the different levels of interventions, and these are the things we're going to do to help you, push you over the line so that you are bankable. So we're looking at mentorship programs, incubation programs, accelerator programs, small and medium enterprise support, and products that give access to finance to those enterprises. We're looking at providing access to markets for businesses. We're looking at basically creating opportunities and spaces where businesses can partner, collaborate, and network with other interested parties. One such an example of that type of intervention is the Intra-Africa Trade Fair, where we will have a Creative Africa Nexus program that seeks to connect the creatives with investors, connect the creatives with potential buyers, potential clients, and therefore and also collaboration amongst creatives, because one of the things that recognizes that there's an information asymmetry. Someone could be sitting in Kenya looking for a particular raw material that's sitting in Cote d'Ivoire, and there is no repository of that sort of information where we can all go to one place, and let's call it a digital African market, where you can say, if I'm looking for cotton, if I'm looking for this type of raw material, Cote d'Ivoire specializes in this type of fabrication. If I'm looking for more hair, South Africa specializes in this type of knit, and therefore I can source it from here. So we're trying to build these bridges and break down the barriers that are quite imaginary, because they were imposed on us, and therefore the bank takes it very seriously, the job of breaking down these barriers. And the most sharpest tool we have at this moment is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which will bring down these colonial barriers to their knees, basically. But it is our duty to take up the mantle and to take charge, because this is something that has been bequeathed to us by those who came before us, who conceptualized this. Now it's our turn to take on the baton and run with it.
Fantastic. Thanks for your input and sharing that insight, Kanye. And I believe Roberta stands in a very would provide some solutions that maybe banks, bigger institutions might not be able to provide the small organizations or companies. And so I would like to introduce bring back Roberta and ask her, as the managing partner of the Impact Fund for Africa Creatives, that's what solutions do you provide support fashion designers as they scale? Also, what steps do you think fashion entrepreneurs should follow to finding funds such as yours or any financial institutions? Thanks, Roberta.
Thank you so much. And I've learned so much about what others are doing on this. Has been quite informative for me as well, just to know what platforms like AfriExim are doing in the creative sector. So thank you again for the questions. I'll take it in two steps. The first step is, what are we doing? So for the past 10 years, we had African Fashion Foundation. And African Fashion Foundation, you can look at it more as initially, before IFAC, was a blend of incubation and acceleration. And the work that we've done there was to focus on education and capacity building and grants. So for the past 10 years, we've deployed $1.7 million of our own funds. We've never raised a dime from external partners. It's been our money. And these funds have gone into supporting creatives with grants for production, with fellowship programs. So we've taken creatives from the continent, fashion designers, into major fashion capitals and provided them with housing and a stipend and educational opportunities so they can learn under established brands. And the minimum is about 6 months to about a year. So our fellowships lasted 6 months to a year. We've had scholarship programs that also gives the African fashion designer an educational, opportunity to go and be educated in a different market. And then we've supported with grants for production because, again, access to capital is very difficult. And, a lot of fashion designers don't even, like you're saying, very informal in the way they operate, and it's quite fragmented. We haven't found a way to glue the pieces of the fragmented nature of the creative economy yet. So a lot of designers, because of the informal nature, the lack of protection of the IP, don't even have a way, because when you have IP, you can commercialize. Without IP, how do you even go to a bank? What sorts of collaterals do you have to even, get funding from a bank? So this is where we stepped in to help piece the fragmented nature together and to build the initial infrastructure that would allow creators then to have some kind of, I'll say, gravitas, as a business. And so this is where we stepped in for 10 years to create those pieces and incubate designers. And a lot of the top designers that you're hearing in Paris, opening Fashion Week and whatnot, have been part of our incubation process and gone through our acceleration process. And now that we have an established investment platform, we're now, because we can see the potential for growth, the potential for scale, and we can see a return on investment. But 8 years ago, 10 years ago when we started, we couldn't see that. But the potential was there. The creativity existed, right? But you could not see the ROI. And I've used my own resources to create a proof of concept because it was very difficult to convince. I work in the area of resource mobilization with the United Nations. I work with a lot of the wealthiest families in the world. And going to them to invest in a creative venture was not a topic of interest to them because they did not see the ROI. They believed they were just throwing the money away if they were going to invest with a creative, or they would rather buy the pieces or the art and not really invest in the sector. So it was a challenge. So I needed to put my own resources to create a proof of concept. And that's so important, to understand that we're not just talking, we're actually doing the work and we're making a great impact. So 10 years down the line, we decided to set this platform because we realized that we needed to now go out and raise external funds. We could not do it with our own funds anymore. First of all, I don't have the resources to solve a lot of the problems that we have with creators. I can't do it alone. So I'm happy to see that the likes of AfriExim are in the game and coming in with the funding, because you needed to raise external funds to tackle the problem. I look at the creative economy from a socioeconomic context. I feel creative economy is a way to get a lot of young people employed. We have a very young population in Africa, 65% under the age of 25. So if we're talking about job creation, we're talking about youth unemployment. We have to tackle the issue of using creating more businesses out of the creative economy. It's also a way to look at gender parity issues. So if we're trying to get a lot of women economically empowered, we do have an opportunity to use the creative economy as a tool. And then the third factor is we're all talking about cultural heritage and protecting what we have as Africans. Why should our, I'll say native or heritage or cultural kind of identity be taken by other markets and then sold back to us as Africans? This is why we need to step up as Africans to see, because we have so much that is happening in the creative that is appropriated by other markets. I love what my sister's doing in Cameroon, looking at what she has locally to really establish and pool and aggregate different, businesses together to produce on the continent. This is what we need to do, right? So there's so many pieces to the puzzle, we can't do it all. But for us, our long-term, goal as a fund is to ensure that we have partners in different markets who really are doing that. And we want to amplify their work. We want to support their work. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to really amplify those players in the different markets. Our aim is to combine what we've already done at AFF. So the AFF has now become the incubation point. And at incubation, you need a different amount of money. So you need more grants because you're going from ideation to prototype. So you need grants, you need technical assistance, you need that kind of soft support, right? Then acceleration. The next step for us is acceleration. You need more money in acceleration because you have an IP that you want to protect and you want to create like a business infrastructure around your business. And you need different kind of funding for that. So our aim is from incubation to acceleration, understand what amount of money creatives need and to be able to provide that. And then the third stage is actually where you do the equity, because you need to look at different businesses, right? So from incubation to acceleration to the fund, you have to be we have a team that are managing each aspect. So currently we have 4 businesses in incubation, we have 5 businesses in our acceleration, and we have 3 businesses where we've actually put equity investment into. And every stage has a team that actually looks and assesses what the businesses need, how much funding they need, and also protecting and guiding the funds that we give them to ensure that it's utilized properly and that can actually give a return on investment. Because if I'm going to open up to investors to invest with me through my platform, then I have a fiduciary duty over their money to ensure that when it's invested, I can make a return on investment and give them back their money plus an upside. So it changes the dynamics and you need a different skill set, which we've been able to put together in 3 years. And we're really excited about what the future holds, really, because we've seen so many projects that have been presented to us. And I really wish that we had the funding to be able to capture all. But we're doing the very best that we can to tackle, the problem in our own way. Thank you.
Yes, I know Christine is here to prompt us that we are running out of time. I'd like to thank you all for participating, but what I would like to do right now is to give your closing remarks and include what the scaling of Africa fashion means to you and what opportunity lies there. In less than a minute, please wrap up and share that.
Thank you, Busi. We're going to make it really snappy. For me, my biggest thing is how we can develop fashion on this continent, because I've realized that a lot of us are so dependent on foreign markets, and we have the CFTA, which is there to kind of help us in that. So I am really pro finding local solutions. Everybody is trying to get into Nordstrom, to Macy's, everybody cannot be there. How about we develop our own Macy's, our own Nordstroms, our own Saks, so that we can just produce and get them there? That's just how my mind is working right now. And I wish, together with what Roberta is doing, and Afrexim Bank, we can really be able to set up such structures on the ground. Thank you.
Fantastic. Roberta, can you follow in Kibonel?
She said everything, but I'd love to just add that, African solutions for African problems, like she's saying. Let us find our own solutions. And we also have to find a way to work together and not work in silos, right? Thank you.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for that. And Regina? You're muted. Oh, Kanye, could you jump in, and then Regina will come back when her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What else? Should I continue? Yeah.
Yes.
So, Roberta and Kibonin have just mentioned. I think we need to look within Africa for solutions, our own solutions. I mean, there's always this mantra of African solutions, by Africans, and I think that mantra needs to be put into effect. And also, I think designers need to know how to market themselves, the type of designs that are coming out of Africa, in as much as we want to demystify what African fashion is, but they also have to be relatable. They have to be, we can't all be kind of like, playing second fiddle to Rick Owens, for example. If a designer like Rick Owens, that is not relatable to the African fashion aesthetic. So it's all these things that we need to look within, and we need also stop playing second fiddle to what other countries are doing abroad. And we can collaborate, but we cannot play second fiddle.
Kanye, thank you so much, Regina. Kanye, your remarks.
Oh, they've said it all. I don't even know what more to add, but I would say, for me, the biggest thing is about understanding that there is power in unified approaches, where we're not working in fragmented sections or silos. There is power in platforms like this, where we start having the necessary conversations, but it shouldn't end there. This should not be the end in itself. It should actually be part of the process, a start of unifying African voices, of unifying the African vision, and actually approaching our solutions in a unified manner. And that will enable us to build an understanding of that market that Regina is talking about, that you need to understand who you're selling to. You can't understand who you're selling to if you're not talking to them. If you want to make, for instance, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area work, you want to be able to have a successful trading partners within the continent. Yes, we need access to markets like the US and Europe and so forth, but as all these amazing panelists have pointed out, we need to look within first. And therefore, for me, it is about, first and foremost, having a unified approach to solving.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I mean, we have taken the, solutions by us, but we can also borrow a few things from others, but we have to take a unified approach. And I've heard there's a proverb that actually I was saying, if you don't wear the most ideas in the graveyard, because you're not sharing ideas, you have to basically share. So I'm Busi Matsiko again, the executive director of the Africa Future Summit and global strategist at Pond Global. I would like to thank you, amazing panelists, for your insight and sharing about how to scale Africa's fashion and in a global market. And I would like to thank our sponsors. Thank you again, and have a wonderful of the summit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. It was a pleasure to have each and every one of you on this session. An amazing job, Busi, for bringing this dynamic conversation to the summit. All right, let's swing right into our next speaker. I know we have another panel coming up. I want to get started. 30-second countdown to our next keynote speaker. Welcome to the Africa Future Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the co-founder of Moja Centers, Ltd. I pass it over to you for your keynote remarks. Thank you so much for accepting this invitation.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. First, I'd like to say that there is a need for OEMs to establish tech hubs to support innovation in Africa. In the past, OEMs were not establishing tech hubs to support innovation in Africa. Tech hubs were not necessarily supporting innovation coming from the African continent, particularly from startups in South Africa. And the last problem we had was that the existing tech hubs were not using innovation to support startups. Since then, Moja Centers was created as a tech hub to support startups in the agricultural ecosystem. The aim was to digitize the agricultural ecosystem. Since then, the Moja Centers has supported the development of design thinking innovation qualification in South Africa, where in the past there was no innovation method that was acceptable by all the parties. We are quite excited that for the first time, at least next year, South Africa is going to have a qualification based on one of the innovation methods, which is design thinking innovation. We know that Africa presents an opportunity for innovation around design thinking innovation, since design thinking innovation focuses more on human challenges rather than systematic challenges. We believe that the vast number of creativity and the number of people in the continent will present an opportunity for Africa to come up with its own solutions to its own challenges in a systematic and sustainable manner. Since then, Moja Centers has incubated 12 SMMEs since 2018, which is the first cohort. The second cohort will be graduating next month, which is 30 in total. We would be having 42 startups that would be graduating, and those startups would now be blending into trying to digitize the agricultural ecosystem. We managed to create to date 14 million US dollars market access opportunities to the first cohort. This is because unlike in the past where innovation was never focused on Africans' priority challenges, we are quite pleased to position the startups that we have into the emerging and the new opportunities in the agricultural sector, which are supported by national government and other funding institutions. So what does the need for OEMs, and I use the term OEMs basically, essentially IP holders to establish tech hubs to support innovation in Africa. What does that really entails? And what is it that is going to enable? I've outlined in the amount of time that I've been given at least 3 areas, and I would use Moja Centers as a case study. So the first is the ability for IP holders, in this case OEMs, to tap into the vast amount of human capital in the continent for market access. I think I'm not shy to say, as the continent, we are not coming with a begging bowl. We are saying there's an amount of creativity in the continent that can be leveraged, and anybody who would like to tap into that, they can actually benefit from market access in the continent. The continent, from a human capital point of view, presents an opportunity for market access for many of the IP holders who would like to capitalize on human-centered approach to innovations. So that's the first part. Then the second part is that what this would do is it would enable African startups to collaborate on innovation to scale. In South Africa, Africa and other African continents markets present an opportunity for scaling. In other words, if you have African startups from South Africa and other African countries collaborating on human-centered innovation, already automatically you have market access to any of those areas or regions where the collaboration partners are based, or the problems that you are trying to address, or the questions that you are trying to answer in various markets. And just to give an example, Moja Centers was actually established by two co-founders, one in South Africa, one in East Africa. So by mere fact that there was a collaboration amongst two African startups, that created an opportunity to solve both problems that are affecting the farmer ecosystem in South Africa and the farmer ecosystem in East Africa. Now, you can imagine that if we can support this type of collaboration, that automatically creates market access opportunities for all the entrepreneurs that will be collaborating in various parts of the continent, depending where they are located. The third one, which is the final one, is that African startups can actually leverage on the South African funding ecosystem for startups. For the past 18 years, I've been part of the development and the legislation of, in South Africa, we call it enterprise development, essentially is a support for startups. In the past, it has not been sustainable because a lot of the support lack innovation, a lot of the support lack intellectual capital, intellectual property. So the ability to bring African startups to leverage on the ecosystem for the funding models that are currently available, it will unlock extra innovation. If I can just maybe go deep into that, the way the funding ecosystem is structured in such a way that there's a local African startup that has to hold at least 51%, and the 49% could be owned by anybody. I'm saying that there is an opportunity for a collaboration amongst African startups in various parts of the continent with South African beneficiaries of that funding ecosystem, which we call enterprise development, to develop innovation, to leverage on also on the design thinking innovation qualification, because that also on its own unlocks further funding into the development of IP into various other technologies, whether it's artificial intelligence, robotics, and so forth and so forth. So the need for OEMs to establish tech hubs to support African innovation is more important now than before. At the time, then in 2018, when Moja Centers was established, at that time, there was no standard or preferred or model or accepted model. So currently, at least there's an accepted model for innovation, and that is going to see it being gazetted for finalization, let's say at least next year. That on its own, it's going to unlock funding for startups to then use the upskilling of partners or employees in order for them to innovate and come up with answers, as we call them in design thinking. On the other part, this platform creates an opportunity for African startup to collaborate with South African startups to innovation to scale their products. I think there has never been any opportune moment for African startup, and particularly South African startup, to collaborate, or even any parts of the continent where there are structured models for innovations where they can unlock funding. This current era presents an opportunity for scaling products beyond borders and reaching other areas of the continent that ordinarily we wouldn't be able to achieve. So the mere fact that we could collaborate together presents that as a market access opportunity to scale opportunities. And then lastly, it's the ability to leverage on the South African funding ecosystem for startup. In 2018, I presented at the General Electric Innovation Summit in India, and I made a call for OEMs to establish tech hubs to support innovation in Africa. And I'm glad that we were able to partner with one OEM, at least to provide one aspect funding, and on the other side, the IP for what we've been able to achieve. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, I know we're pressed for time, but I just want to thank you again for your remarks. And I really appreciate you taking the time for telling us about what you do at Moja Centers and, of course, the work that you do in Africa. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to now kick off the countdown for our final panel of the evening. I know we're pressed for time. He was giving such amazing insight about what the work that he does at Moja Ventures. So please, I know we're sharing information links on Moja Centers and the work that he does. Let's kick it off to the final panel of the Africa Future Summit. All right. Hello and welcome. So excited to introduce the key future trends of the construction and real estate industry in Africa. I would love to introduce our moderator and influencer, Alan Lwanga, Global Program Lead at AME Enterprise. Please give a warm and virtual welcome to our moderator for this amazing panel session. I pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Christine. And, I'm really excited to be a part of this. It's been a great event so far, and thank you for handing over to us and this great panel. If I may set the scene for our panel, all our panel members, you're welcome.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, and thank you for sparing your time.
Thank you.
Busy, your executives, but this is a very key conversation to have, and it's very timely. As I was saying, I would like to set the scene of what's going to be the backbone of our conversation. So what we have in the panel is a head of a global governing body, the RICS. We have somebody representing the client team. We have an entrepreneur representing real estate. We have somebody representing the funding of developments and projects. And we have somebody from the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. So without further ado, I would like all my panel members to introduce themselves. Just 2 minutes, please, no more than 2 minutes. We'll start with the president of the RICS, Clement.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks for having me. My name is Clement Lau. I'm the director and head of evaluation and development of an Asian property company called Hong Kong Land. We own projects and portfolios across Asia, from Beijing to Jakarta, from Cambodia to Japan. I have also another role, which Alan just mentioned. I'm the current president of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyor. Our institution has 134,000 members across 146 countries at the moment. And we are the standard setting professional body, which I'm able to share with you in more details. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you for that, Clement. Next to you, Matt.
Alan, thank you, and welcome to my fellow panel members. So just a brief introduction from my side. I am the group director for a company called Profica, and we are the delivery partners for global CBRE across Africa. So my focus for the business is pure delivery and operations across the business. And we are a Pan-African country, so a Pan-African business at least. we really pride ourselves on having presence in not all of the 54 African countries, but we've got a good presence across the east and the west of the country, the southern part of Africa, and a lot in the Francophone regions as well. So our focus is really on the investor markets, and as well as what we call the occupier markets of the real estate space. And it's really a focus on big project delivery, and also some of the smaller projects across the continent. My previous experience was in the UK, where I worked for various global construction firms and consulting firms. More recently, I've settled in South Africa. I'm based in Johannesburg, but obviously do a lot of travel across the country into various parts of the African continent.
Thank you for that, Matt. Over to you, Pam.
Good evening. It's evening here in Cape Town, where I am based. I'm in Hermanus at the moment at our holiday home because it's Friday evening, and that's why we're here. But thank you for having me. This really is a great privilege. If I see who the other speakers are, I feel tiny like this because I am just an entrepreneur. I have been in real estate for 35 years, though, with two of the big corporate companies, real estate companies in South Africa. And 9 years ago, I decided to start my own entrepreneurial real estate company called Reds, etc. And I have roughly 120, I think, about agents currently working across the country for my company. So I am at ground level. I've also served on a number of boards, including the Services CETA, which is the Education and Training Authority. I'm a big supporter of education. That's why I'm there. I've got a master's degree in education, and I'm lucky that I've been able to combine my education background with my real estate background, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you so much, Pam. Over to you, Kuseni. All right. Kuseni, I think, is having a bit of a problem with connectivity. Let's go over to Desire, please. Mr. Lomu.
Yes. Good evening, colleagues. Good evening, Alan. So I'm Desire Lomu. I'm representing the AFCFTA Secretariat in this panel. So the AFCFTA Secretariat is this continental market of 55 African countries with 1.2 billion of consumers, and with a project of having a market where you can freely move goods from a country to another without any borders, without any custom fees. So basically, we are here to also share the experience on how we build on the regulations across the continent to ease the development of a very strong construction industry in Africa. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lomu. Kuseni, back to you. Okay. It seems like Kuseni is still having connectivity issues. Nii, please, if you can introduce yourself.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks for the opportunity to speak at the conference, and thanks and welcome to my other co-panelists. My name is Nii Adile. I work for Standard Bank in the capacity as head of real estate finance for where we define as Africa regions. Africa regions for us is about 20 plus countries in the continent outside of South Africa, which is our home, our head office. We are the largest bank in Africa by total assets, and we are the largest lender to real estate, commercial real estate in the continent. We deploy real estate funding solutions in over 15 countries, and we support clients on a Pan-African basis, both at the country level and across multiple countries at the same time. Thanks for having us here.
Thank you so much, Ni. And I suppose I can introduce Mr. Kuseni. Kuseni is the chairman of Masmat in Africa, and he's also chairman of the board of Aspen Pharmaceutical Holdings. He's representing the client as the client in terms of our panel today, to have a view and contribute to what he thinks should be the future trends of construction and real estate, and what he has viewed or what he thinks needs input from us as stakeholders when delivering projects for him or for the real estate. Kuseni, can you hear me? Can you hear me clearly? How's your connection?
I can hear you.
I don't think I did justice introducing you, because it's, you know, you can introduce yourself so everyone gets an understanding of who you were.
Hello, everyone. It's a great honor and privilege to be part of this very crucial panel. My name is Kuseni Dlamini. I'm chairman of Masmat. We are a leading general merchandise and retail and wholesaler in Africa. We operate across 13 African countries. We've got 411 stores, 48,000 employees across the continent. I'm also chairman of Aspen Pharmacare. We operate across 50 countries, first world and emerging markets. Our product footprint goes across 150 countries. We currently are the manufacturers of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine here in South Africa, which is manufactured for Africa and the rest of the world. And we're very proud and humbled to be playing a role in combating the global pandemic that is facing all of us. I very much look forward to being part of this great panel. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kuseni. As you can see, I had done your introduction in justice. I had left out so many things, but thank you for that. So let's kick off our conversation. And just before we get into that, I would like to introduce myself. You know, lastly, my name is Alan Wanga. I'm a chartered quantity surveyor by profession. I'm also a global program lead for CBRE, and I head CBRE's relationship with our partners in Africa and Middle East. So if we kick off, I'll start off with Matt. Matt, in your role as the CEO of Profica, of course, we work together, you know, based on what you've said. You are delivery partners on the continent. In your view, what types of clients do you see are entering the market, both global and locally?
Ellen, thank you. So I maybe wanted to just provide a little bit of context, and you know, not to sort of repeat you know, what a lot of people may know, but you know, our view of the African continent and the potential of the African continent is extremely positive. You know, we believe it's a massive growth market, and our strategies are really built around that. So to get into a little bit of detail around your question, you know, our focus as a business is really you know, Pan-African, as I said earlier, and we try and split that that big patch of Africa into sort of into segments that can just be a little bit more manageable. And you know, the cultures are so diverse, as we all know. You know, across you know, whether you're looking at the Francophone region to the west, or just purely the West African space. East Africa is another sort of big focus area of ours. And then obviously everything southern, you know, in what we call the Southern African development countries. And then we've got what we call North Africa. So, you know, we as a business, and again, just a little bit of more context, our focuses are really on five main opportunities across that space, which is, you know, we are seeing a significant population growth across Africa. You know, and our focus is really just on that, you know, because of the opportunities and the urbanization that we're seeing across that space. Africa is industrializing. So there's, you know, massive growth in terms of production and industrialization. And then Africa is also pushing the boundaries in terms of just filling that gap around infrastructure and the infrastructure growth. We know it's a little bit of a hamstring for the African countries, in terms of they just haven't got, and we haven't got the sort of infrastructure that is required, to be able to just grow at the rapid rate. And then there's sort of a big unleashing of opportunity in the sort of agriculture and resource wealth part of Africa. So again, leveraging off that and just being geographically positioned to capitalize on that is quite important. And then the last one is, and last but not least, is just around the tech initiatives and just the growth of the internet sort of growth across the country, and that leads into data centers, which is a big growth area, which I'll talk about. So to go into the detail of your question, it's very cyclical for us, so depending on where the economies are and where the global economies are, we really see every single global client coming into Africa. So I know that's a bit of a broad response to you, but it is very cyclical. When our hospitality is up and we've got the big hotels being developed, industrial and logistics might be down. And similarly, when healthcare is up, any one of the other markets might be down. So we do see it being sort of depending on the region and the country. It does really depend which clients are coming in to those specific regions. But what we're seeing at the moment, and I want to just talk a little bit about some of the bigger sort of sectors that are we really seeing are moving. And the first one, and it wouldn't be a surprise to anyone, is the data center space. So we've got a lot of sea cables coming into various parts of Africa, and on the back of that, it's been really exciting to just see the opportunities and both the hyperscalers, coming into that space, as well as the colo operators. The likes of African Data Centers, Terrico, NTT is another big one. Vantage is also another big one. Over and above the big hyperscalers that are going into those regions. So, until maybe a year or so ago, they were everything below sort of a megawatt in terms of what was being developed. And now what we're seeing is the much bigger data centers being developed across Africa. So South Africa really is where everything started. Cape Town with AWS was a big focus amongst other operators. But now what we're seeing is it really flowing into Africa. So, we're seeing a lot of activity in Nigeria. We're seeing a huge amount of activity in Kenya. And then as far as up as Cairo and those North African countries. So that's certainly where we're seeing a lot of clients come in, and there's a lot of activity there. The other big ones are hospitality. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the acquisition that Casada made recently, which has made them one of the biggest West African or Francophone hotel operators. So there's a huge amount of activity there, and what we're seeing is a lot of refurbishment of existing hotels that that have either been a little bit run down or just haven't had the investment into those facilities, and then a lot of new builds as well. So hospitality is another big space, and then just with what happened with COVID over the last sort of 20 months, we saw a massive decline in the commercial office space. And a lot of clients sort of repositioning themselves and really just taking a view to say, listen, are we going to go back to the office? Is it a time to sort of clean up and consolidate a little bit? And we are certainly seeing that in the commercial office space. So we're seeing a lot of consolidation. We're seeing a lot of rethinking around, okay, what does this new normal mean in terms of office space? And what do we want to do with our office space? I think there's also a big focus on health and well-being. So not only trying to attract the best talent in these regions, but really just a focus on attracting the best talent and just making sure that clients have got the right sort of environment for their staff to operate at their most optimum. And be able to just function in a bit of a hybrid model, So not everyone's coming back to the office, but it's more of a hybrid model in terms of what that office space means and what clients are really trying to do. So I think that in a nutshell, I hope that gives everyone a little bit of context in terms of, what type of clients are coming in and where the regions, what sort of regions we are operating in. I mean, the last comment I wanted to make is just the diversity of population across Africa. You've got 190 million people in Nigeria. Egypt and Ethiopia are the next biggest sort of spaces with 90 million people. All the other countries are sort of sitting either below the 20 million mark or just above that. So there are sort of really big economies and slightly smaller economies across the African space. So it's just really how we operate and deliver to those. But where we're seeing the growth in those smaller sort of countries, that's where probably some of the really exciting stuff is happening, not only around infrastructure, but you're around sort of the big oil and gas projects. And on the back of those oil and gas projects, you get residential, commercial, retail, all of it really flows from there. So hopefully that answers your question and it gives you a bit of context.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Matt. I mean, that what you've highlighted can go in so many directions, but keeping it on what we are trying to achieve here today and share with the audience and among the stars, I think that's spot on, and that's what in my own experience is what I'm seeing, and it's exciting for the continent. We're having a varied number of clients coming into the continent, and what that means, it raises the bar in terms of our local professionals delivering projects. It raises the bar in terms of trying to get the standards that are required global and locally. So it's exciting. So that brings me into real estate. Pam, in your view, where do you think real estate is going? I mean, you have a good portfolio, you have a good real estate business. Is it digital transformation that is enabling you scale up? Is it education? Just give us, an insight of the real estate picture from your point of view in Africa.
Thank you so much for that, Alan. Yes, to me, it is extremely important to realize that if we're looking at the challenges in the real estate environment, and there are challenges in the times that we're living in, and especially for the future, it's our responsibility to make sure that we handle this as securely and as well as we possibly can. I've been in this business for 35 years. I've got a responsibility towards not only my agents that work for me, my personnel, my children, my husband, my family, but also to my clients and the people that we deal with on a daily basis in Africa as a whole, because there's a huge responsibility in terms of real estate. Why do I say that? And it's also important that you understand where I come from. And when I studied education, I studied philosophy of education, and it turned out that I was named a phenomenologist. And that is somebody who goes back to the phenomenon, to the start of things. And I want to know why. I want to know what the purpose is. What's the purpose of this? What's the purpose of us doing this, of being in the real estate environment? Why is it important for our futures, for our children's futures, for our security in Africa? Why is it important that we look at real estate in a different way? Not just technologically. Obviously, technology is hugely important, but I want to take it from the education point of view. And I think there are two basic aspects that really need urgent attention from all of us, people that feel that we have some kind of responsibility and accountability towards our continent. And if we look at the future challenges, there are two basic aspects, I believe, that need very urgent attention currently, because it's not just about technology, but it's also about the education, as I've said. Now, number one, the education. What do I mean by that? I mean that what I'm trying to say is real estate ownership is such an important part of any person's life, of family life, of our futures, of our children's future. If we don't understand the security that real estate can provide for our continent, then we don't understand anything. So ownership needs to be understood from all aspects of family security, but also to legal security. What do we understand? Are we educated? Do we know? And what is our responsibility to educate the people around us in terms of title deeds, ownership of property, the legal processes that need to be followed? What is a contract? What do you do? What are your responsibilities if you enter into an agreement of sale, or even just to lease a property, to buy a property? What kind of property it is doesn't really matter. If it's a home, that's where you start. That gives security to your family, it gives security to the people around you. Why do we need to do this? The question that I always ask is why? It's for that security. The second basic aspect that needs attention is obviously technology education. It's wonderful to have the technology. There are lots of people out there. All of you sitting there, all the people speaking today have access. But do we really understand the workings behind the technology and how it can improve our lives and our businesses, our small businesses, our large businesses? They've all got high-tech guys working for them, but the people that actually have to have that, have to get the positive side of it. How do we look after them, and do we look after them at all? So I'm back with education. So I just need, I can't get this thing here. Just come help me quickly. I need to just click here. I can't find it. Sorry, I need my help here. See, that's technology for you. That's why education in technology. But for me, I've been thinking about this so hard and long since you sent me this question. And then I was thinking, what about the ethical side of technology? Has that come in at all? Yes, we use it. Yes, it's good for our business. Yes, we advertise. We're on Facebook. We're all over. We're on Instagram. All of those things, we use that, and we teach our agents to use it, to advertise on it, to get clients, to get buyers, to get sellers, to show the world out there who you are, to promote your personal brand. All of those things are done. But do we ever consider the ethical side of technology? So education in terms of technology, in my mind, needs to be taken further than just utilizing it in the business world to make it more accessible and move faster, because that's what we want to do. But what and how do we do that? The ethical and trust dimensions are the things we need to think of very seriously, pertaining to the tools that we utilize. And this needs to be incorporated into our children's education from the very beginning, from the 5 years old. My 5-year-old granddaughter said to me the other day when I said to her, "What's this word in Afrikaans?" She said, "Oma, Google it." She's 5 years old. She says to me, "Why don't you Google it? Like, please, you know." So our children need to understand, because they are part of this, it's part of their lives. They need to be educated in terms of the ethical side of it, so that when we utilize it, our clients and our staff and the people that we deal with and our other business partners, that they can trust what we are saying and what we are doing by utilizing this technology. It's all about knowledge and experience. If you've got the knowledge, that's wonderful. You've studied, you've got your degree, you understand how it works, you're an IT expert. But you have to put this to work before you can really integrate your knowledge and experience in such a way that it can make a meaningful contribution to the world out there. What are the ultimate goals of the integration of knowledge and experience? Three things, actually four. Stability. Think of the family, think of owning a home, but also think of your business where you utilize all of these. When you purchase a property, it gives you stability, a sense of stability. Independence, very important. You don't have to depend on somebody else. You've got your own house, you've got your own building, you've got your own office, whatever. And it gives you freedom. So those to me are the most important things: stability, independence, and freedom. But not just for you personally or for the people around you personally that you are assisting, also financially. Otherwise, you're running a charity. if you're an entrepreneur, it's got to be sustainable, which means also financially. But when we are dealing with real estate, we need to remain cognizant of the fact that buying a home has a totally different storyline to investing in a commercial or industrial property for return on investment or internal rate of returns and that kind of thing. Yes, they are all there, but we need to understand, and that's part of the education process, that there are majorly differing target markets out there that need to be approached differently by utilizing the technology differently. We have different target markets. We're currently doing, my company is doing a marketing of a retirement estate in Wellington, which is here in the Cape Winelands. Our target market is totally different to the student market in Stellenbosch that are looking to buy flats near to the university and apartments. So when you use your technology, you must use it in such a knowledgeable manner that actually speaks to the target market that you are wanting to address. So we need to utilize all the different platforms in a responsible manner to ensure safe and ethical connectivity, cybersecurity, real-time data, information sharing, all the things that we utilize this wonderful technology that is available to us. But I want to end off by just saying the most important of all is that we must never forget that we're dealing with human beings at all aspects at all times, except when there are bots and things around, but we check them out. We are dealing with human beings. We're selling a property. We're purchasing. We're finding somebody we're trying to find the right property for the right person. It's the most important, probably, and the biggest investment they're going to make in their lives. It is something that we've got to do for the right reasons. We mustn't just do it for doing a job. We must do it to assist people. So what we need is sincere and open communication when it comes to technology as well. But the human touch, we must never forget. We are always there's always a human being behind all of this. Technology is important, but it shouldn't be all-consuming. Thanks for the opportunity.
Fantastic insights, Pam. Thank you so much. And, just to step back, I think that's such a great message. As much as there's the drive for digital transformation, especially in our industry, as you all know, Matt, Clement, the lockdown has caused us to adapt quickly and take on different platforms to get projects done. We couldn't travel, projects being delivered all over the continent, and we've relied on technology. But I think Pam's point is so critical. Do we understand what we're using? The education bit, the security of it, the data sharing and information, and also the pride of the real estate we are buying, be it commercial, be it residential. In Africa, as we all know, property is so key. That's like your wealth. I own a house, I own a property, I own a building, the business people with commercial buildings, the offices, that's your pride. So it's important to understand and get ourselves educated in the mechanisms that govern that whole process. And also, I think the key one, the way you ended it, Pam, we must never lose the human touch. And I think that is so critical as we adapt into the digital transformation, the digital age, where things are done quickly and without thinking or common sense. I think it's important to take that step back, pause, understand that we're dealing with fellow human beings and there's emotion around it. They're investing loads of money, and then we engage. Thank you so much for that, Pam. And that conversation around real estate and the way Matt came in with the clients and the type of clients we're dealing with, and the standards you alluded to, Pam, brings me nicely into Clement, the president of my body, the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. I guess I have a couple of questions, and we've had these conversations before. In Africa at the moment, there's really a need and a call to governing bodies such as the RICS, especially the RICS, to, I think, partner with the local country bodies. Because what has happened is you find that in most African countries, they have their own local bodies established, be it quantity surveying, be it property management, be it project management, being real estate surveyors. They have their own bodies. And I feel there's a disconnect now with bodies like the RICS, and conversations like this that we're having, I think, start that conversation to get global governing body like the RICS plugged into those local bodies. And like Matt said, we have a lot of global clients coming into the country demanding the same standards they see in Europe or Americas or APAC. So you, as the current president of the RICS, one, how do you see that connectivity happening? And yeah, let's start with that. How do you see that connectivity happening, Clement?
Thank you, Alan. I think this is a very good question. Although RICS is a global professional institution, we do have members in the African continent. So at the moment, I think we have around 1,100 professional members across the Sub-Saharan Africa. And we see that there's a very important kind of relationship that we, being a international professional body, how we're able to engage with the local professional institutions so that we could able to collaborate and work together in promoting a better built environment by adopting some sort of standard that we all agree. And of course, I mean, we all know that this kind of exercise need to work hand in hand, not just on the professional side, but also with the relevant government authority, the academia, so that we can able to broaden the base and bring that kind of understanding and adoption by different part of the stakeholders and our professional member. At the moment, RICS standards are being implemented in some African countries. But at the same time, I think there are some sort of challenges we are facing right now. And our key long-term goal is to ensure more consistent uptake of our standard, taking into consideration of the local context to be taken up in different parts of Africa continent. This is likely to be achieved, I mean, through, as I mentioned earlier, the partnership with local bodies. And it's not just RICS, we're saying one thing. And with the help of our members, I think we could able to have better understanding how international standard or RI standard could be able to apply in different part of Asia, different part of Africa, taking into the local situation and conditions. For instance, I think in Nigeria, our valuation standard called Red Book has already been adopted, and likewise the international valuation standard in their entirety. So this is something that's driven by our local members in Nigeria, working with the relevant stakeholders, the government and investment community. And in Kenya, parts of our RICS valuation standard and all of our international valuation standard has already been adopted as well. In Uganda, we are working with local experts to see how we get able to prepare a valuation standard applicable to that particular country. And we are also pushing through one of the latest version in terms of international cost management standard and the international land measurement standard. Let me give you some background about the international cost measurement standard. Normally, I mean, in a project, we only measure the cost life cycle of a building or project, taking into the financial consideration. The latest version, version 3, that we are going to release and publish, take into account of carbon footprint, which is exactly what the COP26 is all about. So we could able to take into the consideration from the inception of the project, the construction of the project, the completion, operation, and until it's decommissioning, the carbon footprint that will produce by that particular project. So we could able to check the life cycle of carbon footprint on top of the financial implication to that. In other areas, we are trying to sign some of a memorandum of understanding with local group so that all these kind of RI standard or international standard will be recognized or in Africa. And I think we have a partnership with Ghana Institute of Surveyor, and the Town and Country Planning Association in Kenya. So you can see that we have already some sort of local contacts and collaboration with the local authority. However, I think we need to, in order to achieve all these kind of work, I think we still need to recognize there are challenges in front of us. In particular, how we can get through the recognition process by the government authority or the local stakeholders. And sometimes it could be quite tedious. For argument's sake, in Nigeria, it took us 5 years just to get recognition of our validation standard. So the timing could be quite unpredictable. So if we could able to have a better kind of promotion and education to our stakeholders or the community at large, I think it would just help for us to get our standard, be it the standard that we work together with the local institution or the international standard, be recognized. And one thing I think I echo with what Pam just mentioned, it's all about education, and we need to take it in a bigger context. So we are talking about education, not just the professional standard or those kind of expertise, but also we should broaden it to the community at large, and upbringing of the common knowledge or understanding of the community from the professional to the layman. What are the importance or significance in adopting this kind of standard can help to enhance the built environment that we are creating in Africa, which has tremendous opportunities and potential, in particular in years to come. And as we are competing with the COP26 in terms of the built environment, I think Africa will be one of the key components in making sure that we can able to achieve the net zero carbon footprint in longer run, as there's a lot of development going on, as what Matthew just mentioned about. And I also see that if we could able to work together to share the knowledge base, it would help everyone. I mean, not just in Africa, but in other parts of the world. Last but not the least, I also echo what Pam just mentioned. Ethics is one of the most fundamental pillars of our professionalism. Without ethics, I think whatever we say, whatever we do will not be recognized and will not be able to produce positive outcome as a result. So I think on the other hand, we should also, by collaborating with the stakeholders, professional body, engaging the community at large, just to make sure that whatever we do is for the best interest of our future generation in coming up with a more sustainable, greener built environment in the future. I hope I could answer your question, Alan.
Fantastic, Clement. You've answered it and even given me more. Thank you so much. I mean, again, that's exciting. I like the way it's all interconnected, which is, why it was important for this panel to sit down together and have these conversations. And you've mentioned you've made some very good points. I mean, most importantly, the conversations are already going, the partnerships are, being established. Of course, we need to do more, but that takes everyone playing their part. There are so many other conversations happening outside of this one. So it's good the entire industry and the stakeholders in the industry and people I know personally are having these conversations at local level, through the RICS, they're engaging local bodies. So that's exciting. And the other issue you've highlighted is the standards and the ethics. I think that is so critical, and it feeds into education, as Pam said. So it's all interlinked. So again, those are conversations that need to be going, and I'm glad that the ball is rolling and we're having these conversations. That brings me nicely into Mr. Lomu from the Africa.
Alan, hi, Alan. Apologies. You just need to do closing remarks.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Before we get to closing remarks, I just want to. Can I put in two things?
We do need to get to closing remarks, please.
Okay.
So just add it to the question of closing remarks. Thank you.
Okay, fine. So it's we've run out of time because it's the time we're allocated. However, before I get to closing remarks, the key stakeholders who didn't get to speak, Mr. Desire Lomu, Africa Free Trade Agreement was going to come in to link the standards from the RICS through the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement to assist, maybe work in partnership, because they have the trade links across the continent to be able to drive that and support. And that conversation will be ongoing after this panel. And then Mr. Kuseni, as a client, you are going to share your insights into what you should expect and what you want to see from, people like Matt, who are operational. And then Ni, of course, the question was, all you funders always say there's money to fund projects, but when you speak to developers, they always say there's no money. It's hard to get funding. So you are going to open up and give us insights onto actually how to approach the issue of getting funding for developments, because it's available. And I know from Standard Bank, you're the biggest, so there's processes, but maybe people on the continent are scared and afraid of the process. And again, it goes back to standards and ethics in the way we approach all these. We've run out of time, our audience, but as you can see, these are very critical conversations. They'll continue going on. So in terms of closing this great panel, I would like to thank Christine and team. I want to thank Busi.
Alan, please, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, we have been waiting for many hours to have this conversation. It's unfortunate that spending our time, and then now we are reaching this close. I'm really, really disappointed by this. I wanted to mention this.
Yeah, I totally understand, but
sorry, I just wanted to clarify. I'm saying that for the speakers themselves to provide their concluding statements, not to wrap it up. So please allow them to provide their closing remarks. Thank you. So I'm coming back on. I think Alan will come on. Desiree, please, it'll be an honor to hear your final thoughts. And I just want to add clarity that I know we would love to hear more, but I just want to make sure that each speaker had the opportunity to close out and provide final remarks and pretty much final dialogues to the ecosystem. So please, I don't want to disappoint you. We'd love to hear your ending thoughts to share with us at the community, please. Thank you so much.
Not so many to add, because I think I was just to jump in what Clement said, because I was really, really interested to make the link between what is presented and what we are doing at the African Continental Free Trade Area. And what also Pam mentioned is very key for us. So that is something very important for us to link all these people to show how this project, how this agreement can ease the daily life of all of those components. So I will not take too much time. I just want to thank you on behalf of the Secretariat to have invited us to this meeting. Thank you.
From my side, if I may just come in, as a customer and recipient of the services that construction and real estate provides, I'm really encouraged with Mr. Lomu's comments that the African Continental Free Trade Area really opens up vistas of opportunity for us to work that much better together, to partner across borders, and to deliver world-class projects. And the key thing that we expect as a customer is just to make sure that whatever we do on the construction and real estate side contributes to sustainable local economic development. We want the value chains to absorb local entrepreneurs, local business people, especially the youth and women that are usually excluded in big projects. And we always look to our partners that we work with in construction and real estate. And in negotiating the partnership, we do articulate very explicitly what our expectations are, because we want to make sure that people and communities are better off for us having been there in every country in Africa where we invest, in every community in Africa where we invest. And I'm very excited with what the African Continental Free Trade Area offers. And I was very encouraged by what Matt and Pam and Clement said around the issue of standards, education, and ethics. We're very strong as a company that's governed in the New York Stock Exchange and subject to Foreign Corrupt Practices Act of the USA and the SEC requirements. Wherever we operate, ethics are at the core of how we do business, and anti-corruption is so central in the manner in which we operate. And we see ourselves as a catalyst for the modernization of Africa, African economies, and African value chains and supply chains. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kuseni. Thank you so much. Nee, do you want to say something quickly?
Yeah, thanks. So from a funding perspective, I think one of the things to highlight is, and we say it all the time, but perhaps it doesn't resonate enough, that the market, Africa is not a homogeneous market. 54 countries, very different dynamics in each country. And those dynamics affect how you fund projects. It creates the demand calibration considerations for each of those markets. It's important to note that in the international real estate markets, less than 1% of international capital flows to real estate flows into the continent. That's including South Africa, where where the supply of property is at a much higher stage than most of the other countries in the continent. But the reality is that the market is characterized by structural undersupply. The resolution is finding solutions to addressing that structural undersupply in a sustainable way, and for financing to play a role in that. Unlike most of the markets, financing is a permanent capital, or should I say debt financing is a permanent part of the capital structure, and it's important to consider it as that. In terms of accessing capital, it's then really about dimensioning what market is addressable in each of the traditional and non-traditional real estate segments, and ensuring that the legal and regulatory environment is adequate to support investment, and to support the flow of institutional capital into those markets, and then execution capacity, which is where the likes of the RICS perhaps comes into play, and supporting institutional tenants like Massmart. And that happens successfully primarily through partnerships with institutional capital but domestic competence. And that synergy has to continue to roll to attract capital, to ensure that the capital sources deployed in the market continue to be sustainable. And with that symbiotic relationship, management capacity that is relative or relevant to the markets continue to evolve and continue to develop. From an outlook perspective, what we see is a continuous domination of domestic capital sources to develop the continent from an ingrown perspective. Currently dominated largely by international capital, but there has to be a mix of both international and domestic capital. One, to make the market appealing to international capital sources, but again to create assets that support the built environment and quality of lives in the countries. So it is, that is the path that we, from a Standard Bank point of view, continue to contribute to, working with a number of clients that are deploying assets at a Pan-African level. Some limited to specific geographies, others operating across multiple countries, and across a wide footprint. I think those are perhaps the bits to highlight. And maybe the last point on the closing remark is the one thing that is important to note is that the investment structures in real estate, in capital funding, or should I say funding to real estate in the market, continue to evolve. And ultimately, what is necessary for sustainability is the completion of the real estate value chain, right from development, institutional capital flows to capital market activities that continue to create a seamless cycle of capital flowing in and out of the sector across different traditional and non-traditional subsectors within the market. Let me end at that. I hope it's made sense to the people listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nate. It absolutely does, and I think we're thrown off a bit, but I think everything interlinks. And thank you, Mr. Lomo, as well. The whole idea of this panel is to see how all of us as stakeholders in the construction and real estate interlink and work together and have these conversations so that we get the desired results, to make sure we deliver, for future generations, to make sure we leave the continent cleaner, to make sure on the education aspect, people are up to speed and scratch in terms of, construction and real estate. And as you've had, now we have the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. I think that's so critical. And, I know we had a lot to talk about that, but that is critical because it opens up borders for trade. And when we say trade, construction and real estate and infrastructure, basically the built environment is part of that. And what that has done is then enabled conversations like governing bodies like the RICS that have a global responsibility and duty of standards and ethics to work with, or maybe, these conversations to happen so that that communication is happening. And for clients like Kuseni, with growing portfolios or businesses being set up in different countries, this is made easier for your portfolio to set up, because now the standards and the communication, anybody from Mozambique can be able to contribute to construction of your plant or manufacture retail store or a retail store in Nairobi. So it's so important. And then Matt, for what you do as a construction consultancy firm, is to be able to set up entities in different countries to compete, to be able to to deliver for your clients locally and global. And then for NI, of course, to enable the funding, to enable payments, to enable real estate growth, to enable infrastructure growth, because all these things interlink. And PAM, of course, on the education piece, that when it's all said and done, we need to take a step back and make sure whatever infrastructure we are using in terms of delivering for the construction and real estate, there's a serious educational piece to be thought about. It's quick, it's okay for people to say, yes, we're getting, it's digital transformation, we are getting all this technology, but what does it mean? What does it mean in terms of understanding the contracts within real estate, the property management, asset management? So, I mean, with that, I would like to, to thank the panel. Thank you so much for your time. People won't appreciate what has gone on behind the scenes in terms of getting all of us together and contributing our information and thoughts. But thank you so much for sparing your time. And to the audience, thank you for being patient with us. And to Christine and team, Busi and team, thank you so much for granting us an opportunity to share our thoughts, have these conversations. And I'm sure between us, with the people listening, these conversations are going to go ahead in order to make sure. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you, Alan, for being a great moderator. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Kuseni.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Christine, you're on mute.
So you have it. So I just want to say thank you again, Alan, for moderating this conversation. I just want to extend another point of gratitude to each one of you for taking the time to join us and discussing this pertinent content. And of course, I want to pass it over. I know Busi wanted to give some quick remarks as well as we conclude for the final panel and the final summit. Busi?
Thank you so much, Christine. I'd like to also thank the global startup ecosystem for the support, and the panelists who have done a remarkable job with this real estate and construction panel, because I believe real estate and construction are key in Africa. And it's the foundation for many other conversations. And it's such an honor to bring this eclectic group together, from funders to governing bodies to clients and to the project management point of view. And the project management point of view to this panel. And I'm just honored at the way this panel as well as summit has gone, especially since we are still in the COVID times. But this is just a beacon of hope for Africa. And it's just a trajectory that our future is very optimistic. I'm very optimistic about the future, hence the Africa Future Summit. And I would like to thank you all, thank our sponsors, thank all the people who have been watching, thank the partners, and thank our team that has been behind the scenes, getting everything together and making it fun as well as educational and inspirational. And I'm just let me tell you about how historic this panel is. We have the president of the RICS. The RICS was founded in the 1800s. And this is the first time a non-English president is at the helm of RICS. And for the president to be on this panel with us today, it's an honor. Thank you. All of you, Mr. Kuseni Lamini, thank you. Ms. Pam, thank you so much. Mr. Ni Adelaide, thank you so much. Matt Rancho, thank you so much. As well as Mr. Desire Lumo and our moderator who sacrificed a lot to make this happen. We are thankful. Thank you so much and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much for that, Busi. And with that, a pleasure having you all at the Africa Future Summit.
Christine, you're muted.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say again, thank you to all for this last concluding session. There's obviously more to come. It was really a pleasure to have such a dynamic group join us for this final closing panel, the key future trends of the construction and real estate industry in Africa. Now, with that said, I do want to conclude and welcome everyone to continue the conversation using hashtag Africa Future Summit. It truly was an honor. I want to extend another round of virtual gratitude and immense $1,000 thank yous to all who've been a part of today's summit. I can't thank them enough. And of course, to all of our partners who made this accessible. As you are aware, this is a free program that we've expanded to many communities from across the African continent and the African diaspora. Truly an honor to have everyone join us today for the 2021 edition of Africa Future Summit. This is the 4th annual edition of the program. Again, thank you all for being a part of the GSC mission of preparing individuals and institutions for the digital age. And of course, continue the journey with us as we continue this dialogue across different regions around the world. And finally, again, my name is Christine and Tim, the founder and CEO of the Global Startup Ecosystem, which has brought you this iconic summit, the Africa Future Summit. And you heard here so many different ranges of conversations from fashion, tech, trade, entrepreneurship. There's so much dialogue around the future of Africa. And if there's anything that this time period has shown us is the immense opportunities that is available not only on this continent, but within us as a people reconnecting back to Africa, tapping into Africa and accelerating Africa the way we believe it should be accelerated and building our narrative of the future. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this journey with us. And we look forward to seeing you next year for the 5th edition of Africa Future Summit. Stay tuned for more updates. Again, congratulations to everyone. Have an amazing 2021 year. Thank you so much, everyone.
one thing that I always find really interesting is how many people kind of all agree that this is the time for Africa to shine and there is a lot happening out there, but no one has really taken the step to do anything.
We see many African SMEs that, they have the potential to become a successful, African, but also global traders as well. So that's the first point.
I said education helps us to understand our problems, but also come up with solutions to them. Technology helps us to scale out the solution.
You'll find that we are likely to hold positions of power across the globe, regardless of what our representation is. We often have to overcome so many barriers and constraints in life and have to work twice as hard than our male counterparts to access those positions of power.
I just want to say this experience has shown me that Africa is home to an incredibly diverse group of talented and innovative people, including entrepreneurs and business leaders who are poised to make a difference and make significant contributions across Africa, as well as to the global economy.
If you've been to Africa, or if you're African, you know exactly what I'm talking about. With especially in Uganda, we have 45 million people with only less than 40% have access to internet.
I have a lot of hope for the AFCFTA because, as you know, being in this space for a long time, I realized that it righted the wrong of the way in which we've approached trade and trade policy, the way we've approached investment policy, which is the other part of the marriage, and the way we have ignored industrial policy.
Now, as we all know, Africa is going to quadruple its population in the next 2 decades. In other words, in the next 2 decades, 1 in every 4 person on planet Earth is going to be African. Now, 70% of that is below 25 years. So Africa is a very youthful population, and Africa is going to unleash a very youthful population on the world.
So no matter where you are in the world, you can find talent in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Tanzania, all around. But our people and our young professionals need to be upskilled and be informed about how to do effective work, even if it's remote.